The small suburban neighborhood of Palo Alto had always been quiet. The streets were lined with tree-shaded sidewalks, and the houses were just close enough to wave to your neighbors, but far enough apart that you could still enjoy a sense of privacy. To the outside world, it was just another place. Another sleepy town in California where things happened slowly, almost predictably. But on one unusually warm Tuesday afternoon, everything changed for Sarah and her 4-year-old son, Leo. Leo wasn't your average kid. At least, not by a long shot. Most 4-year-olds were still figuring out their ABCs, scribbling on coloring books, or playing make-believe games. Leo, however, was solving complex equations with ease. His vocabulary was advanced, and he was already speaking 3 languages fluently. But it wasn't until that afternoon that Sarah realized how truly exceptional her son was. Sarah sat across from Leo at their kitchen table, half paying attention to the puzzle she'd set in front of him. The task was meant to keep him busy for a few minutes while she cleaned the dishes, nothing more. But then something happened that would set their lives on an entirely different course. Leo finished the puzzle in less than a minute. She wasn't shocked at first. After all, Leo often did things like this. But what happened next made her heart stop. Leo didn't just finish the puzzle. He looked at the pieces and began explaining the theory behind it. "That's a prime number sequence," Leo said, pointing to the solution. His voice was calm, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Sarah froze. She hadn't even taught him prime numbers. He was 4. For a moment, she just stared at him, not quite understanding what she was hearing. Leo continued, explaining how the puzzle related to the Fibonacci sequence and even linked it to the golden ratio. He was spitting out concepts that were years beyond his age, concepts that many adults had trouble grasping. "Leo," Sarah said, shaking her head in disbelief, "how do you know all this?" Leo looked up at her, his big brown eyes wide with innocence. "I don't know, Mom. I just understand it." Her hands shook as she tried to grasp what was happening. Sarah had always known Leo was special, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. Before she could respond, Leo went back to his puzzle, his little fingers moving quickly as if everything made sense to him. Sarah stood still, her mind racing. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The next few days were a blur. News of Leo's astounding abilities spread quickly. Local schools wanted to meet him, newspapers were calling, and every expert under the sun had an opinion. But no one could quite figure out how a 4-year-old could be so advanced in so many areas. It wasn't long before the email came. "Dear Mrs. Thompson, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Elon Musk, and I've heard a great deal about your son's incredible abilities. I would love to invite you both to visit SpaceX. We are always looking for brilliant minds, and it seems your son may be the kind of prodigy we're looking for. Please let me know if you're open to this opportunity. Elon Musk." The name alone sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. She stared at the screen for what seemed like hours. She had no idea how Elon Musk even knew about Leo, but the invitation was real. She double-checked the email address, and sure enough, it came from one of Musk's official accounts. Leo had been invited to meet Elon Musk. It was hard to comprehend. How could a 4-year-old, a child who could barely even write his name, be invited by one of the most innovative figures in the world? What could someone like Elon Musk possibly want with a boy like Leo? Sarah's mind raced. On one hand, she wanted to protect her son. She wanted to keep him in their little bubble, shielded from the world that would inevitably try to exploit him. But on the other hand, this could be the opportunity of a lifetime. Leo was different. He wasn't just any child. He was something extraordinary. And maybe, just maybe, this was a chance for him to change the world. "Mom, are we going to see the stars?" Leo asked suddenly, interrupting her thoughts. He had been playing quietly with his toy cars, but now he was looking up at her, waiting for an answer. Sarah smiled softly, her heart swelling with both pride and fear. "Yes, Leo," she said, taking a deep breath. "We're going to see the stars." As she clicked reply and began typing out a response to Musk's invitation, her hands were trembling. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. This wasn't just about a visit to SpaceX. It was about launching Leo into a world that was far beyond anything she had prepared him for. A world where the stakes were high, and the spotlight would shine on him in ways she could never have imagined. What would Leo's life look like after this? Would he thrive in that world, or would the pressure crush him? She wasn't sure, but deep down, she knew that this moment would define everything that came next. She hit send and stared at the screen for a long time. A wave of both excitement and fear washed over her. The road ahead was unknown, but she couldn't deny that something in her gut told her this was just the beginning of something much bigger. That evening, as Sarah tucked Leo into bed, she kissed his forehead and whispered, "You're going to change the world, my little genius." Leo didn't respond. He was already half asleep, his mind undoubtedly filled with dreams of stars and galaxies far away. But Sarah knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. What would you do if your child had the potential to change the world before they could even read? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The sun had barely risen when Sarah found herself sitting at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. The weight of the decision she had made hung in the air like a thick fog. In just a few days, she and Leo would be flying across the country to meet Elon Musk at SpaceX. A part of her still couldn't believe it. But this wasn't just about a visit to a corporate giant. It was about her son, the child she had spent 4 years raising, suddenly becoming the center of attention in a world that was not ready for him. As she absent-mindedly stirred her coffee, her mind wandered back to the beginning, before the emails, the media frenzy, and the endless calls from reporters. Before Leo became a prodigy in the eyes of the world, he was just her little boy. Sarah had always known there was something different about Leo. It wasn't just the way he spoke, advanced vocabulary for his age, his clear and articulate thoughts. It was the way his mind worked, the way he could absorb information faster than anyone could process it. He had been reading before he turned 2. At 3, he was already diving into advanced math problems, and by 4, his ability to comprehend complex scientific concepts was nothing short of mind-blowing. But none of this surprised Sarah. To her, Leo wasn't a genius. He was just Leo, her son, her miracle. Her thoughts drifted to the moment she realized just how remarkable her son was. It had been a quiet evening when Leo, for no particular reason, started talking about the stars. It wasn't the usual childish curiosity about space or planets. No, Leo went into intricate details about the composition of stars, the light years that separated them, and the mathematical formulas needed to calculate distances across galaxies. It was as if he had downloaded an entire library of astrophysics while the rest of the world was asleep. When Sarah first saw Leo solve an equation that she had never even heard of, it felt like time itself had paused. It wasn't just a fluke. It wasn't a case of a child reciting something he had overheard. He was genuinely understanding and processing complex information that took years for adults to even grasp. At that moment, she realized that Leo wasn't just ahead of his peers. He was light years ahead. But it wasn't all easy for Sarah. As proud as she was of Leo's abilities, the pressure of raising a child so different from everyone else weighed heavily on her. The world wasn't prepared for children like Leo, and neither was she. From the moment he could talk, people started noticing. Teachers, doctors, even strangers on the street would make comments about how gifted he was. Some marveled at his intelligence, while others seemed skeptical, as though they expected something to go wrong. And Sarah? She felt a constant sense of unease. Raising a genius wasn't like raising any other child. It was a different kind of responsibility, one that Sarah was still learning to navigate. How could she protect him from the world's expectations? How could she ensure that Leo stayed grounded, that he would have a childhood that was full of joy and innocence, despite the enormous pressure placed on him? The first time Leo ever asked about school was when he turned 3. He had watched some kids playing at the park, and in his typical manner, he had approached Sarah with an insightful question. "Why do they go to school, Mommy?" Leo had asked, his voice full of genuine curiosity. "What do they learn there?" At the time, Sarah had simply smiled and explained that school was a place where kids want to learn about reading, writing, and numbers. But Leo wasn't satisfied. He wanted to know the specifics, how numbers worked, how letters came together to form words, and why the world was the way it was. It was then that Sarah realized that, while most kids were busy making mud pies and riding their tricycles, Leo was trying to understand the very fabric of existence. It wasn't long before Sarah took the next step, enrolling Leo in a private school that specialized in gifted children. The school was known for catering to young prodigies and helping them develop their intellectual potential. But even there, Leo didn't quite fit in. Sure, he excelled academically, but he didn't share the same interests as the other children. While they played video games or talked about cartoons, Leo was spending hours reading books on theoretical physics and the latest discoveries in quantum mechanics. He wasn't lonely, he was just different. Despite the brilliance Leo displayed every day, Sarah tried to keep his life as normal as possible. She didn't want him to grow up too fast, and she didn't want him to lose the simple joys of childhood. But every day, Leo's genius pushed further into territory that Sarah didn't fully understand. She would hear him discussing topics she'd never heard of, throwing out words and concepts that felt like a foreign language. He would explain complex problems to her with such ease that it made Sarah feel both proud and overwhelmed. At night, after tucking Leo into bed, Sarah would often sit by the window, staring out into the night sky. She wondered about the future. What would Leo's life look like? Would he be a scientist? An engineer? Or would he choose an entirely different path, one that was yet to be written? And more importantly, would he be happy? As Sarah reflected on those quiet nights, she found herself asking another question, one she had never dared voice aloud. Was she prepared to let go of the idea of a normal life for Leo? Because the world was beginning to notice him, and it wasn't just the people at school or the local media. This time, it was the invitation from Elon Musk. It was then that she realized that their lives were about to change in ways she couldn't have imagined. Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur known for his groundbreaking work with SpaceX, Tesla, and so much more, had taken an interest in Leo. How could she say no? Could she keep her son away from the world that was calling to him? Her gaze shifted to Leo, who was sitting in the living room, deep in concentration as he lined up his toy cars in precise patterns. Despite everything that was happening, he remained just as he always had, focused, calm, and blissfully unaware of the whirlwind that was about to unfold around him. Leo was still her little boy, the child who loved to play with cars and ask questions that seemed impossible for someone so young to ask. But that wouldn't last forever. Not now. As she sat there, staring at Leo, a wave of emotion hit Sarah. Pride, fear, love. She wasn't sure what was coming next, but she knew one thing for sure. Leo was about to embark on a journey that would change everything, and she was going to be there every step of the way. If you had a child with extraordinary talents, how would you handle the pressure of the world's expectations while still allowing them to enjoy a normal childhood? The weeks leading up to their meeting with Elon Musk felt like a blur. Sarah's life was consumed by interviews, media attention, and managing Leo's newfound fame. What had once been a quiet existence in Palo Alto had exploded into chaos. Every day, new people appeared at their doorstep, some with genuine curiosity, others just looking for a story. Reporters camped out in front of their house, sending photographers to snap pictures of Sarah and Leo. Sarah had always prided herself on maintaining a private life. She never wanted her son to feel like he was under a microscope, but the moment Elon Musk had invited them to visit SpaceX, everything had changed. Suddenly, Leo wasn't just her child. He was the child, an extraordinary prodigy, someone whose intellect seemed to transcend normal boundaries. And everyone wanted a piece of him. It was late one evening when the first real conflict began to unfold. Leo had been invited to participate in an interview with a well-known news station, a special feature about child prodigies. Sarah hesitated at first, unsure if this was the right move for her son. But after consulting with Leo's doctors and teachers, she agreed. They assured her that this interview would be positive, a chance for the world to understand just how gifted her son was. The studio was packed with cameras and bright lights, the hum of equipment in the background creating an atmosphere of tense anticipation. Leo sat beside Sarah on the plush couch, looking calm and composed as always. He seemed unaffected by the flurry of activity around him, his small fingers playing with a toy car in his lap as if he were completely at ease. "Leo, you've been called the smartest child in the world," the interviewer began. "You're 4 years old, and you've already mastered advanced mathematics and several languages. Can you tell us how you do it? Sarah held her breath as she waited for Leo's response. He was so young, but in moments like this, he had a way of making it seem like nothing was out of his reach. I just understand, Leo said softly. His voice as clear and innocent as ever. It's like the numbers and words just come to me, like they've always been there. The interviewer smiled, clearly impressed, but there was something in his tone that made Sarah uneasy. The way he leaned in, the way he asked, "Do you think you're better than other kids?" sent a chill down her spine. The question felt wrong, loaded with an undercurrent of judgment that Sarah wasn't prepared for. She could feel her chest tighten. Leo, oblivious to the subtle shift in the conversation, replied, "I'm not better. I just know things, and I like to share them." Sarah couldn't help but feel proud of his answer. It was humble, it was thoughtful, and it reflected everything she had hoped to teach him: humility, kindness, and the importance of sharing his gifts with others. But the interviewer didn't stop there. The questions grew more pointed, more invasive. "Do you think it's fair that you have all these abilities while other kids don't?" Sarah's stomach twisted. She wanted to jump in, to protect Leo from these uncomfortable questions, but she held herself back, trusting that he could navigate the situation. Leo, still holding his toy car, looked up at the interviewer with wide eyes. "I don't know if it's fair," Leo said after a pause, "but I think everyone has something special inside them. They just have to find it." The studio fell into silence for a moment, and Sarah felt a rush of emotion flood through her. Her son was wise beyond his years, more self-aware than most adults. But Sarah knew something that the interviewer didn't. Leo wasn't like other kids. He wasn't just special. He was a phenomenon, and as much as she wanted to shield him from the outside world, she knew that the world was watching, waiting for him to be something more than just a child. As the interview continued, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the world was trying to make Leo into something he wasn't. They weren't interested in who he was. They wanted him to fit into a mold, to be a trophy for their own validation. This wasn't just about Leo's gifts. It was about the expectations that came with them. And those expectations were beginning to weigh heavily on Sarah. Later that evening, after the interview wrapped up and they returned to their quiet home, Sarah sat down with Leo in the living room. The house was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the refrigerator. "Leo," Sarah began, her voice gentle but firm, "how do you feel about all this? About all the people asking you questions?" Leo, as usual, didn't seem upset. He was flipping through one of his science books, his little face completely focused on the illustrations of planets and galaxies. "It's okay, Mom," Leo said, not looking up from the book. "They're just curious. I'm curious too. I like answering questions." Sarah's heart softened. Leo had always been a child who thrived on curiosity, and part of her was relieved to hear that he wasn't feeling the pressure as much as she was. But another part of her knew that he was still so young. His understanding of the world was different from hers. He wasn't yet aware of the magnitude of what was happening. "Leo," she continued, "sometimes people might expect too much from you. They might think that just because you're so smart, you should always be perfect. But you don't have to be perfect, okay? You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to just be a kid." Leo looked up at her then, his face serious, and for a moment, he seemed older than his years. "I don't want to make mistakes, Mommy. I want to help people." Her heart ached. Leo wasn't just trying to be smart. He was trying to make the world a better place. That was the true burden of his gifts, the pressure to live up to expectations, not only his own but those of everyone around him. As Sarah tucked him into bed later that night, she kissed him on the forehead and whispered, "You don't have to be perfect, Leo. You just have to be you." Leo's eyes fluttered closed, and he nodded, already drifting off to sleep. Sarah, on the other hand, lay awake long after, staring at the ceiling. She could feel the weight of the world pressing in on her, on both of them. There was no going back now. The path ahead was uncertain, and the expectations would only continue to grow. But she couldn't protect him from that. All she could do was support him, love him, and hope that he would find his way through it all. And yet, even as she lay there, she knew that the biggest test was still to come. It was an ordinary afternoon when Sarah received the email that would change everything. She had just finished making lunch for Leo and was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. Between all the messages from friends, family, and reporters, she had learned to tune out most of it. But one subject line caught her eye, and her heart skipped a beat. Invitation from Elon Musk, SpaceX tour, and discussion. For a moment, Sarah sat there in stunned silence, staring at the screen. Her first thought was that it had to be a joke. After all, how could someone like Elon Musk, one of the most influential men in the world, be interested in her 4-year-old son? But the email was real, and the message was clear. Elon Musk wanted to meet Leo, not just in a casual sense, but in an official capacity. He invited them to visit SpaceX, to tour the facilities, and to discuss the possibilities of Leo's extraordinary mind and how it could contribute to the future of science and technology. It wasn't just an invitation. It was a door opening to a future Sarah wasn't sure she was ready for. Her mind raced as she thought about what this meant. The SpaceX campus was a world away from their quiet life. A life filled with ordinary school days, birthday parties, and neighborhood picnics. Now, that life seemed like a distant memory. A visit to SpaceX wasn't just a trip, it was a shift in everything. And it wasn't just for Leo. It was for her too. The email mentioned a private meeting with Musk himself, where the two could discuss Leo's abilities in greater detail. It was an opportunity that few people could ever dream of, but it came with its own set of challenges. After all, how could she prepare her 4-year-old son for something like this? How could she protect him from the weight of being a genius? Would this experience help Leo grow into the person he was meant to be, or would it leave him even more isolated in a world that couldn't quite understand him? Her first instinct was to decline, to protect Leo, to shield him from the intense pressure that awaited him. But Sarah knew deep down that this was an opportunity Leo could never have again. This could be a chance for him to connect with someone who might truly understand him. Elon Musk had always been a man of innovation, a visionary who saw the future not just as a place to live, but as a canvas for new possibilities. Maybe, just maybe, Leo could be part of that future. "Leo, come here," Sarah called out, trying to keep her voice calm, though the excitement bubbling inside her was hard to contain. Leo appeared in the doorway, his small figure framed by the light streaming in from the hallway. He was wearing his usual outfit, a plain t-shirt, jeans, and his ever-present toy car in hand. "Yeah, Mom?" Leo asked, his bright eyes focused on her with a curiosity that made Sarah smile. She held up the phone, showing him the email, and Leo's eyes widened. "Is that really from him?" he asked, already processing the information with the kind of speed that was both impressive and overwhelming. "It's real," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. "Elon Musk wants to meet us. He wants to talk to you, Leo, about your mind, about what you can do. He wants you to visit SpaceX." Leo's face lit up, but there was something else in his expression, a flicker of concern, something that Sarah hadn't seen before. He didn't speak immediately, but instead stood there, looking at her with quiet intensity. "Do you think I can help him?" Leo asked softly, his voice filled with a mix of wonder and worry. He was only 4, but his mind was already grappling with the weight of the question. Sarah's heart swelled. Leo wasn't just a boy looking for validation. He wanted to make a difference. He wanted to contribute, to help. And yet, this question carried the kind of gravitas that could only come from a mind far beyond his years. "I think you already help Leo," Sarah said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "You have the ability to do things most people can't even imagine. And I think Elon Musk sees that." They both stood in the kitchen for a moment, the weight of the situation settling between them. Sarah knew there was no easy way forward. The invitation wasn't just a gift, it was a responsibility. They could go, yes. They could meet Elon Musk, tour SpaceX, and open the doors to possibilities that could change the world. Or they could decline, retreating back to the quiet life they had known. But either way, life wouldn't be the same again. After what felt like an eternity, Leo finally broke the silence. "I want to go, Mommy," he said, his voice quiet but resolute. "I want to see SpaceX. I want to help." Sarah nodded, her heart filled with a mix of pride and anxiety. This wasn't just about Leo's brilliance. It was about his heart, his willingness to reach out and embrace the world. And if Leo was ready for this journey, then so was she. The flight to California the next week was a blur of excitement and nervous energy. Leo had been so calm, so collected, as if the magnitude of the moment didn't affect him. Sarah, on the other hand, was a bundle of nerves. She had done everything she could to prepare Leo for what they might encounter. New faces, new environments, and most importantly, the overwhelming attention that would likely follow them. But no matter how much she tried to prepare, nothing could truly prepare her for the sheer magnitude of what lay ahead. When they landed in Los Angeles, they were whisked away in a private car, making their way toward the SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne. As they approached the massive facility, the sight of it took Sarah's breath away. This was where some of the most groundbreaking innovations in the world were being made, where rockets were designed, where the future of space exploration was taking shape. Inside the walls of SpaceX, the future felt alive. Elon Musk's presence seemed to be woven into every inch of the building. Everywhere Sarah looked, she saw evidence of innovation and possibility. And soon, they would be meeting the man behind it all. As they walked through the corridors, Sarah's nerves grew. She had always imagined her son's future in terms of ordinary milestones, school plays, soccer games, birthday parties. Now, she was walking him into a world that was anything but ordinary. Leo, however, remained unshaken, his eyes wide with awe as they walked through the state-of-the-art halls. Finally, they arrived in a sleek conference room, where Elon Musk himself was waiting. "Sarah, Leo," Elon said, standing up from behind the table. His smile was warm, but there was an intensity in his eyes that Sarah hadn't expected. "It's a pleasure to meet you both. What do you think Leo's meeting with Elon Musk will mean for him? Do you think a child so young can truly make a difference in the world?" The meeting with Elon Musk was a whirlwind, a moment so surreal it felt like a dream. After their initial pleasantries, Elon led Sarah and Leo through the corridors of SpaceX, showing them cutting-edge designs, spacecraft models, and rocket engines that seemed to defy the limits of human imagination. Leo absorbed every detail, his curiosity lighting up his face like a light bulb. Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of awe herself. She'd always known Leo was special, but seeing him in this environment, surrounded by visionaries, innovators, and groundbreaking technology, made her realize just how extraordinary he truly was. They spent hours walking through the facility, and during that time, Elon Musk observed Leo with a kind of focused attention that Sarah couldn't quite explain. Elon was known for his no-nonsense approach, but when it came to Leo, there was an almost reverent quality to his gaze. He would ask Leo questions, simple ones at first, about numbers, patterns, or the way things worked, and Leo would answer with ease, as though the answers were always there, waiting to be discovered. It was then that the real moment arrived. After the tour, they were invited to a private conference room, where Elon had arranged for a one-on-one discussion. The room was sleek and minimalist, with only a long table and a few chairs. A whiteboard sat against one wall, filled with equations and diagrams that seemed to leap off the surface, as if they were alive. "Elon," Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly, "I don't even know where to begin. This is all so overwhelming." Elon sat across from them, a rare seriousness in his expression. "I understand, Sarah. This is an extraordinary moment for both of you." He turned to Leo, who was still playing with his toy car, completely absorbed in his own little world. "Leo, do you know what we're trying to do here? What we're building at SpaceX?" Leo looked up at Elon, his eyes widening. "You're trying to go to Mars, right?" he asked, as if the answer were obvious. Elon smiled, clearly impressed. "That's right, Leo. We're working on getting humans to Mars. And we need brilliant minds like yours to help make that possible." Sarah could hardly breathe. Was it really happening? Was Elon Musk, the visionary, the man who had built an empire of space exploration, really sitting here, telling her that her son could play a role in all of this? Leo's eyes lit up. "I want to help," he said, his voice soft but filled with determination. "I think I could help make the spaceship go faster, or maybe make it work better. I can figure it out." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. Her son, the boy she had always shielded from the pressures of the world, was now talking about changing the course of humanity's future. It was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. How could she protect him from the weight of it all? Elon leaned forward, his hands clasped together. Leo, I believe you could be a part of something bigger than we can even imagine right now. But I need to ask you something. He paused, his gaze intense. Are you ready to take on a challenge like this? It's not just about knowing things. It's about thinking differently. It's about pushing the boundaries of what we believe is possible. Leo didn't hesitate. I'm ready, he said with quiet confidence, as if this was the natural next step for him. I want to help people, and if this is how I can do it, then I will. The room fell into an intense silence as Sarah processed Leo's words. For a brief moment, the weight of the decision felt too much for her to bear. This wasn't just about offering her son a chance to meet a famous entrepreneur or visit an incredible place. This was the beginning of something far greater. This was the moment that could shape Leo's future in ways she couldn't even fully comprehend. Elon's voice broke the silence. You know, Leo, he said, most people your age are thinking about playing with toys, but you're already thinking about changing the world. I believe you could be a part of something truly incredible. As the conversation continued, Sarah felt herself becoming overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what was happening. Elon Musk wasn't just talking about sending rockets to space. He was talking about sending a 4-year-old genius into a future where his intellect could lead humanity to new heights. It was a heady thought, one that left Sarah with both pride and fear in equal measure. She looked at Leo, who seemed entirely unbothered by the weight of the conversation. To him, this was simply another day, another opportunity to explore, to learn, and to help. She could see it in his eyes, the spark that had been there from the moment he was born, the insatiable curiosity that drove him to push beyond the limits of what was expected. As Elon and Sarah continued their conversation, discussing potential projects and future collaborations, Sarah found herself grappling with the reality of what this meeting had meant. Her son wasn't just a brilliant child anymore. He was a potential partner in one of the most ambitious missions in the history of mankind. The future that she had once imagined for him, one filled with laughter, friends, and carefree days, now seemed like a distant dream. The weight of his brilliance, of the possibilities he could unlock, was both exhilarating and terrifying. And yet, even in the face of all this, Sarah knew one thing. This wasn't just about Elon Musk. This wasn't about fame or accolades. It was about Leo's future, his happiness, and his sense of purpose. Whatever path they chose from here on out, she would do everything she could to make sure Leo remained grounded, that he stayed true to who he was. As the meeting came to a close and Sarah and Leo prepared to leave, Elon turned to them one last time. Leo, I'll be in touch. I think you've got something special, and I'd like to explore the possibilities further. You're welcome here anytime. How do you think Leo's life will change after this meeting? Do you think he will be able to handle the pressure of such a monumental opportunity, or will it overwhelm him? The following weeks passed in a blur, as Sarah tried to process everything that had happened since the visit to SpaceX. What had once been a quiet life with her extraordinary son had now transformed into something she could hardly recognize. The media coverage was overwhelming. Every day, there seemed to be a new interview request, a new news article about Leo's incredible IQ and his potential to change the world. It was flattering, but it was also exhausting. And amidst all of it, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the weight of it all was starting to take a toll on Leo. In the beginning, Leo seemed untouched by the chaos. He was still the same curious, energetic child, fascinated by the world around him. He would spend hours drawing complex equations and solving puzzles, his little mind constantly seeking answers to questions he hadn't even asked yet. But as time went on, Sarah noticed subtle changes in him. He became more withdrawn, less inclined to engage with the world outside of his intellectual pursuits. At first, Sarah thought it was just a phase. After all, Leo was only 4. But as the pressure grew, she realized that it wasn't just a phase. It was something deeper. One evening, after a long day of interviews and phone calls with reporters, Sarah found herself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of unanswered emails. She was exhausted, but there was something else weighing on her, an uneasy feeling that she couldn't shake. She had seen it in Leo's eyes earlier that day when he had quietly walked into the room, looking as though he had aged years in just a few short weeks. "Leo," she called softly, pushing aside the mountain of work in front of her. Her voice was filled with a mixture of concern and tenderness. Can we talk? Leo appeared at the door, holding his toy car in his hands as usual. His eyes, once full of light and wonder, were now shadowed with something Sarah couldn't quite name. He didn't speak immediately but came over and climbed into her lap, curling up into the familiar warmth of her arms. "Mommy," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why do people always want to talk to me?" Sarah's heart ached as she held him close. She had never wanted this for him. She had never wanted him to feel like a spectacle, like some sort of living science experiment. But that's what he had become. The world had discovered Leo's brilliance, and now everyone wanted a piece of it. "Because you're special, baby," Sarah said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. "You have a gift that not many people have, and they want to understand it. They want to learn from you." Leo shifted in her arms, his small face scrunching up in confusion. "But why do I have to talk to them? Why can't I just be like other kids?" Sarah's heart twisted. She had feared this moment, feared that the weight of his intelligence would isolate him from the world. She had always hoped that Leo would remain innocent, untouched by the pressures that came with being so different. But now, she could see that those pressures were creeping in, affecting him in ways that she hadn't anticipated. "I know it's hard, Leo," she said, kissing the top of his head. "But sometimes, when you have a gift like yours, people want to understand it. They want to learn from you. And that's not your fault. You don't have to talk to anyone if you don't want to. You get to choose." Leo stayed quiet, his small hand gripping the edge of the table as he processed her words. Sarah watched him carefully, her mind racing with concern. Was he already feeling the burden of his intelligence? The isolation that came with it? She couldn't help but wonder if she had made a mistake, allowing him to become a public figure at such a young age. Later that night, after Leo had gone to bed, Sarah sat on the couch, staring at the stack of papers in front of her. She was torn. There was so much potential in Leo, so many doors opening for him. But was it all worth it? Was it worth putting him under the spotlight, exposing him to the pressures of the world at such a young age? Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Elon Musk. "Sarah, I know this is a lot for you and Leo. I wanted to check in and see how he's doing. If you ever feel like things are too much, we can slow down the media attention. Leo's well-being is the most important thing. Let me know your thoughts." Sarah stared at the message for a long time, the words sinking in. Elon had always been straightforward, but his message now felt like a lifeline. He understood. He wasn't just a businessman. He genuinely cared about Leo as a person. Still, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were already in too deep. Could she really go back to a normal life for Leo? Could she protect him from the world's expectations and let him grow up at his own pace? She wasn't sure, but she knew one thing. She had to find a way to balance Leo's future with his happiness. The next day, she called a family meeting. Leo sat at the table, his toy car still in his hand, but there was a quiet seriousness in his demeanor that Sarah hadn't seen before. He was taking this conversation seriously, and so was she. "Leo," Sarah began, her voice steady, "we need to talk about everything that's been happening. I know this has been a lot for both of us, and I want to make sure that you're okay. If you ever feel like you need a break from all of this, you just let me know. We don't have to keep doing this if it makes you unhappy." Leo looked at her, his big eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. He was still so young, yet so wise beyond his years. "I don't want to stop helping people, Mommy," he said, his voice soft but certain. "I want to make a difference. I just don't want to be in the news all the time." Sarah smiled, relieved that Leo had such clarity. "We can make that happen, Leo," she promised. "We can find a way for you to help without all the cameras and attention. You're still just a kid, and you deserve to have fun and enjoy your childhood." Leo nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Okay, Mommy, I'll help when I can, but I also want to play with my friends." Sarah pulled him into her arms, feeling the weight of the world lift just a little bit. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that no matter what happened, she would always do her best to protect Leo's happiness and his sense of self. "Do you think Sarah made the right decision to talk to Leo about the pressures he's facing?" How do you think she can help him navigate his genius and still have a normal childhood? As the weeks passed, things slowly started to settle into a new normal. The relentless media coverage of Leo's abilities began to subside, and Sarah made a conscious effort to shield him from the constant spotlight. She took a step back from interviews and speaking engagements, and Leo, for the first time in what felt like ages, was able to experience a semblance of childhood again. He played with his friends, rode his bike, and spent hours exploring the outdoors, marveling at the world in ways that only children could. But despite the return to a more relaxed pace, Sarah could feel an undercurrent of tension. It wasn't the media attention that was weighing on her now. It was the quiet pressure that Leo seemed to carry with him. It was the unspoken expectation that came with his genius. It was the fear that, one day, he might not be able to handle the magnitude of the world he was destined to change. One evening, as Sarah was sitting in the living room, flipping through a parenting book to find some guidance, she heard a soft knock at the door. It was Leo, holding his favorite stuffed animal, his eyes wide with uncertainty. "Mom," he said softly, "can we talk?" Sarah's heart sank. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment when Leo would finally open up about the pressure he was feeling. She put the book down and patted the seat beside her on the couch. "Of course, sweetheart. Come sit with me." Leo climbed up next to her, his small frame shifting nervously. He clutched his stuffed animal tightly, as though seeking comfort in the familiar. "I don't know if I can do it, Mommy," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes, I don't want to be so smart." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Her son, the child prodigy who had amazed the world with his brilliance, was now questioning the very gift that had defined him. It was a moment she had feared, but it was also a moment of profound vulnerability that she hadn't expected. How could she explain to him that being too smart was not something he had to fear? "Oh, Leo," Sarah said, pulling him close, "you're so much more than your intelligence. You don't ever have to be afraid of being smart. Your brain is a gift, but it doesn't define who you are. You're still my sweet, kind, loving boy who loves to play, who loves to learn, and who loves the world around him. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do." Leo sniffled, his small hand wiping away a tear. "But what if people expect me to do big things? What if I'm not ready? What if I mess up?" Sarah's heart broke. She realized that Leo wasn't just worried about meeting the expectations of the world. He was scared of failing. And in that moment, Sarah realized how much pressure he had been carrying without ever saying a word. "Leo," she said, gently tilting his chin up so that she could look into his eyes, "it's okay to feel unsure sometimes. It's okay to take things slow and figure out what you want to do. You don't have to solve the world's problems all at once. You can take your time. The most important thing is that you stay true to yourself." Leo looked at her, his eyes full of both relief and confusion. "But what if I don't want to be in the news anymore? What if I just want to be a regular kid?" Sarah smiled softly, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "That's completely okay, sweetheart. We can do that. We can make sure you have time to just be Leo, the boy who loves to explore and ask questions. You're allowed to be a regular kid, even if you're a very special one." Leo seemed to consider her words, his face still troubled but visibly comforted. "I don't want to disappoint anyone, Mommy." Sarah shook her head. "You'll never disappoint anyone, Leo. You'll always be enough, just as you are." It was a turning point for both of them. Sarah understood now that the real challenge wasn't about Leo's brilliance. It was about navigating the fine line between encouraging his extraordinary potential and giving him the freedom to grow up without the weight of the world on his shoulders. After that conversation, Sarah took steps to limit Leo's exposure to the media even more. She set firm boundaries with reporters and began to focus on creating a balance between Leo's intellectual pursuits and his need for normalcy. It was a delicate dance, but she was determined to help him preserve his childhood and protect his sense of self from the pressures of the world. Over time, Leo seemed to relax more. He began to spend less time in front of cameras and more time just being a child. He played games with his friends, rode his bike with the wind in his hair, and even started drawing less complex pictures, just for fun, not for anyone else's approval. He was still brilliant, but now, it felt like he was discovering the joy of learning for the sake of learning again. not because he was expected to perform. It wasn't an easy transition, and there were days when Sarah still felt the weight of her son's potential hanging over her. But she had learned an important lesson. The most important thing was not Leo's IQ or his ability to change the world. It was his happiness, his sense of security, and his ability to enjoy the simple joys of childhood. And as the months passed, it became clear that, with the right support, Leo would find a way to harness his genius on his own terms. But for now, he was just a boy, curious, adventurous, and full of promise, just like every other child. And that was enough. Do you think it's important for child prodigies like Leo to take breaks from the pressure of their genius? How can we help children who are gifted balance their talents with a normal childhood? As Leo found his rhythm once more, learning at his own pace and enjoying the things that made him happiest, something unexpected happened. An opportunity arose that would force Sarah and Leo to face the world's expectations once again. It all started when Sarah received a private invitation to a prestigious international science summit. The invitation came from an old acquaintance, Dr. Evelyn Harding, a renowned neuroscientist who had been following Leo's story closely. Dr. Harding had long been a supporter of the idea that child prodigies should have more structured environments that encourage their growth without the pressures of fame and public expectations. However, she also believed that these young minds should be given opportunities to collaborate and interact with the world's leading thinkers, without the cameras and without the hype. "I've been watching Leo for months now," the message read. "His talent is unlike anything I've ever seen. The summit I'm hosting will bring together scientists, philosophers, and innovators from all over the world to discuss the future of education and technology. I would love for Leo to be a part of this conversation. But rest assured, this will be an intimate, quiet gathering. No press, no cameras, just a chance for Leo to engage with some of the brightest minds in the world, away from the noise." At first, Sarah hesitated. The idea of placing Leo back into the spotlight, even in a more private setting, made her anxious. She had just gotten him back to a place where he could feel like a normal kid again. But the promise of an opportunity to explore his passions in a safe, controlled environment was too appealing to pass up. Dr. Harding's reputation and dedication to creating meaningful experiences for gifted children gave Sarah some comfort, but the decision was still daunting. Sarah sat down with Leo that evening, the two of them alone in their quiet living room. Leo had just finished a puzzle, a complex 500-piece image of a solar system, and was now sprawled out on the couch, his legs stretched out and his favorite science book in hand. "Hey, Leo," Sarah began, her voice soft but careful. "I got an invitation today for something special. It's a summit where people talk about science and technology. Some of the smartest people in the world will be there." Leo glanced up from his book, his curiosity piqued. "Are they going to talk about space? And robots? And how we can make cool things?" Sarah smiled, relieved that his interest was already piqued. "Yes, they'll talk about all of that and more. But here's the thing. This summit will be different. There won't be any cameras. No big audiences. Just a small group of people who want to have real conversations and learn from each other." Leo tilted his head, thinking for a moment. "Is it like a secret club?" Sarah chuckled. "In a way, yes. It's a place where you can talk freely about the things you love, without anyone watching or expecting anything from you." Leo's eyes lit up. "Can I go? Can I meet other smart people like me? I'd love to talk about rockets and time travel." Sarah hesitated for only a moment longer before she nodded. It was the perfect opportunity for Leo to reconnect with the things that made him passionate without the pressures of being in the spotlight. But at the same time, she knew this could be a pivotal moment for Leo's development. It could open doors that she hadn't even considered before. "Yes, you can go," Sarah said, taking a deep breath. "But remember, this is your choice. You don't have to do anything that doesn't feel right. If you ever feel uncomfortable, we can leave anytime." The excitement in Leo's eyes was unmistakable. "I'll be fine, Mommy. I want to see what they're talking about." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Dr. Harding's summit was set to take place in a secluded mountain retreat, far away from the bustling cities and the glare of the media. Sarah was relieved to hear that the summit would be private and intimate, and that it would focus on collaboration and knowledge sharing rather than performance. There were no expectations for Leo to present or perform. He was simply invited to participate in the conversations, to ask questions, and to learn. In the days leading up to the summit, Sarah and Leo spent hours discussing what to expect. They watched documentaries on space exploration, robotics, and artificial intelligence, topics that Leo was passionate about. Sarah wanted to ensure that Leo felt prepared, but she also reminded him that he didn't have to know everything or be perfect. On the day they left for the summit, Sarah packed a small suitcase for Leo, filled with his favorite books, toys, and a sketchpad for drawing. As they boarded the private jet that would take them to the retreat, Sarah felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. The world had already seen Leo's brilliance. This could be the moment when everything changed once again. But she also knew that this was a rare opportunity for Leo to engage with like-minded individuals, to expand his mind, and to find his place in the world of innovators without the burden of expectations. When they arrived at the retreat, nestled among the snowy peaks of a remote mountain range, Sarah immediately felt the calmness of the environment. The silence of the mountains was a stark contrast to the buzzing energy they had left behind. The retreat was sleek, modern, and designed to encourage deep thinking. It felt like the perfect place for Leo to explore his potential without distractions. They were greeted by Dr. Harding, who welcomed them warmly and assured Sarah that Leo would have the freedom to engage in the summit at his own pace. "We're here to give him the space to learn, not to push him," Dr. Harding promised. "This is about discovering his passions, not fulfilling anyone's expectations." Leo looked up at Sarah, his excitement palpable. "I think I'm going to love this, Mommy." Sarah smiled, holding his hand tightly. "I hope so, Leo. I really hope so." "Do you think Leo will thrive in an environment where he can explore his interests freely without pressure? How do you think this opportunity will affect his future?" The morning of the summit, the air was crisp and cold, the kind of chill that made your breath visible as you exhaled, and the scent of pine filled the air. Sarah and Leo stepped out of the sleek black car that had brought them to the retreat center. The mountain views were breathtaking, and for a moment, all the hustle and bustle of the world outside seemed to fade away. The retreat center itself was an architectural marvel, modern glass and steel designs seamlessly blending into the surrounding mountainside. It was a place designed for thinkers, for people who thrived in solitude but also needed interaction with others who could match their intellectual curiosity. Sarah could feel her heart racing as they approached the large doors, unsure of what to expect inside. Would Leo be able to handle it? Would this quiet environment really be the escape they needed from the constant media attention? They were greeted by Dr. Harding, who welcomed them with a warm, reassuring smile. "Sarah, Leo, I'm so glad you're here. Please, come in. The other participants are just gathering in the main hall, and we'll begin shortly." The inside of the retreat was minimalist and calming. The walls were lined with bookshelves filled with titles on science, technology, philosophy, and the future of education. There were no cameras, no crowds, just a group of people gathered for the shared purpose of intellectual exchange. It was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen before. This was not a place for spectacle, but for deep, meaningful conversations that could shape the future. As Sarah and Leo entered the main hall, they were introduced to the other participants, scientists, educators, engineers, philosophers, and a few other prodigies who, like Leo, had been invited to participate. Some were older, some younger, but all of them shared one thing in common: an insatiable curiosity and a drive to make a difference. Leo's eyes darted around the room, taking in the faces of the people who would soon become his peers for the next few days. He wasn't sure what to expect, but one thing was certain: he was in a room full of brilliant minds. And for once, he wasn't the only one who seemed different. The room was a mix of excitement and anticipation, and Leo couldn't help but feel a thrill at the idea of engaging in conversations that went beyond the basics of science and technology. Dr. Harding led them to a circular table, where everyone would gather to begin their discussions. Leo sat down at the table with Sarah by his side, feeling a little nervous but also eager to learn. The first topic of the day was the future of artificial intelligence, a subject that Leo had been fascinated with for as long as he could remember. "I'd like to start by asking each of you what excites you most about the future of AI," Dr. Harding said, her voice warm but serious. "Feel free to jump in with your thoughts. There are no wrong answers here, just ideas, discussions, and the freedom to explore. The room fell silent for a moment as everyone considered the question. Then, one by one, the participants began sharing their thoughts. Some talked about the potential for AI to revolutionize medicine, while others focused on how it could help solve global challenges like poverty and climate change. There were discussions about AI ethics, about the need for transparency and fairness, and how AI could be a force for good in the world. Leo listened intently, absorbing every word. His mind raced as he formulated his own thoughts on the subject. He had been thinking about AI for years, ever since he first learned about neural networks and machine learning. He wasn't sure if he should speak up. After all, he was just a kid. But as he listened to the others, something inside him clicked. He had an idea, something he needed to share. "Excuse me," Leo said, his voice barely above a whisper, but filled with conviction. "I think AI should be used to help teach people how to think, not just what to think." The room grew quiet, all eyes turning toward Leo. Sarah felt her heart race, unsure of how the adults would react. She could see the surprise in their faces, but also something else, interest. Dr. Harding raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued by what Leo had said. "That's an interesting perspective," Dr. Harding said, smiling. "Could you elaborate on that, Leo?" Leo nodded, his excitement growing as he realized he had the floor. "Well, AI can help people learn new things, right? But I think it should do more than just give answers. It should help people ask better questions, to explore different ways of thinking, so they can make their own decisions. I don't think AI should just be a tool for solving problems. It should be a tool for creativity, for curiosity." There was a moment of silence as the room processed Leo's words. Then, one of the older scientists, Dr. Patel, spoke up. "That's actually a very mature and insightful idea, Leo. You're suggesting that AI should be a partner in the learning process, not just a means to an end. That could open up new ways of teaching, of learning how to think critically and solve problems creatively. What you're describing is not just about facts, it's about fostering curiosity." Leo smiled, feeling a sense of validation he hadn't expected. It was the first time he had truly felt like his thoughts were being taken seriously, not because of his age, but because of the merit of the idea itself. Throughout the rest of the day, Leo continued to contribute to the discussions. He asked questions that sparked deeper conversations, and his ideas were met with respect and curiosity. It was clear that Leo's mind was operating on a level that matched, if not exceeded, the adults in the room. But more importantly, he felt a sense of belonging. He wasn't just a child prodigy being showcased for his intelligence. He was a thinker, a creative mind with valuable insights to offer. As the day came to a close, Sarah found herself reflecting on how far they had come. A few months ago, she had been worried about the pressures of Leo's brilliance. Now, here he was, engaging with the brightest minds in the world and contributing to discussions in ways that few others could. She had seen the spark in his eyes when he shared his idea about AI, and it was clear to her that this summit was exactly what Leo needed. It wasn't just about learning. It was about growing, about finding his voice in a world that sometimes seemed too big for someone so young. Dr. Harding walked over to Sarah as the session ended, a look of admiration on her face. "I must say, Sarah, I'm impressed. Leo's ideas are not only insightful, they're groundbreaking. He's not just absorbing information, he's challenging the status quo. That's exactly the kind of thinker the world needs." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "I'm glad he's found a place where he feels comfortable. He's always had these ideas, but he's never had the chance to share them with people who truly understand." Dr. Harding nodded thoughtfully. This summit is just the beginning for him. The possibilities are endless. As they made their way back to their cabin for the evening, Leo was already buzzing with excitement. "Mom, this was amazing. I can't wait to talk to them again tomorrow. I have so many more ideas." Sarah looked at her son, a mixture of awe and relief flooding her heart. "I'm so proud of you, Leo. You're doing great." And as they settled into their quiet cabin, Sarah couldn't help but think about the future, about all the doors this summit had just opened for Leo, and all the possibilities that awaited him. Do you think Leo's idea about AI being a partner in the learning process could change the way we think about education? How could this approach influence the future of learning? The days at the summit passed by in a blur of intellectual discussions and ideas bouncing back and forth in the intimate setting. Every day, Leo became more animated, his excitement growing as he shared his thoughts on everything from quantum computing to the future of space exploration. He had found a space where he could truly let his mind roam freely, and the atmosphere at the summit was the perfect blend of curiosity and encouragement. Leo wasn't the only one who was thriving. The other participants, too, had begun to open up, inspired by his ideas and eager to push the boundaries of their own thinking. Sarah watched from the sidelines, amazed at the level of maturity and insight that was being shared among these brilliant minds, and grateful that Leo had found such a supportive community. One afternoon, after a particularly stimulating discussion on the intersection of artificial intelligence and biotechnology, Dr. Harding called for a break. The group of innovators scattered to the terrace, where fresh snow had begun to fall, creating a soft, serene blanket over the surrounding landscape. It was the perfect moment for quiet reflection, or, in Leo's case, more exploration of ideas. Dr. Harding, noticing the energy in the group, approached Sarah. "It's incredible, isn't it?" she remarked, watching Leo as he discussed the potential for AI in medical research with one of the other child prodigies. "I've never seen a child so young with such clarity and passion for how technology can shape the world." Sarah nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "I know. It's like he's finally found a place where he belongs. He's always had so much inside him, but he never really had a platform to express it, not without the noise of the world around him." Dr. Harding smiled knowingly. "That's exactly why we created this space. Leo's brilliance isn't about performing for an audience. It's about pushing the boundaries of what we know and how we think. He has the potential to shape the future. And I think this summit is just the beginning of something incredible." Sarah felt a mix of excitement and nervousness flood over her. Could Leo really change the world? Could someone so young, with so much to offer, truly make an impact? But as she looked at her son, who was now eagerly explaining his thoughts on AI's role in genetic engineering, Sarah knew one thing for sure. Leo was destined for something extraordinary. It was in that moment that Leo caught her eye, his face beaming with enthusiasm. "Mom, guess what? I've been talking with Dr. Patel about using AI to help create personalized medicine. You know, like making treatments that are perfect for each person's body and DNA. I think it could make a huge difference for people with rare diseases." Sarah was amazed, not just by the complexity of Leo's ideas, but by the way he was connecting with people who shared his passion. These weren't just conversations about abstract concepts. These were discussions about how to make a tangible difference in the world. Leo wasn't just learning from the summit. He was contributing in a way that was shaping the direction of the conversations. As the evening session came to a close, Dr. Harding gathered the group for a final discussion. She wanted to hear everyone's thoughts on the most pressing issue facing humanity today. Each participant shared their opinion, from climate change to social inequality, but when it was Leo's turn, his response left the room silent for a moment. "I think the biggest issue we face today," Leo began, "is the way we think about problems. We often focus on the problem itself, and then try to find a solution, but we don't always think about how we're approaching the problem in the first place. What if we could use technology and science to change the way we think? What if we could teach people to approach problems differently, with more creativity and curiosity?" Dr. Harding leaned forward, intrigued. "Leo, that's an interesting thought. Are you suggesting that the solution to many of the world's problems might not be found in the solution itself, but in how we approach the process of problem solving?" Leo nodded, his eyes wide with the energy of his idea. "Yes, I think that if we could teach people how to ask better questions, to approach problems with more imagination, we could solve problems in ways we've never thought of before. It's not just about finding an answer. It's about exploring the question in a way that opens up new possibilities." The room erupted in conversation, with everyone eager to explore Leo's idea further. It was a concept that challenged conventional thinking, and for a moment, the summit became a place where Leo's youthful perspective was the catalyst for innovation. He had once again sparked a conversation that would shape the direction of their discussions in the days to come. As the session wound down, Leo's words continued to echo in Sarah's mind. She had always known that her son was extraordinary, But the more she saw him in action, the more she realized just how much of an impact he could make. It wasn't just his intelligence. It was his ability to think differently, to approach problems with a fresh perspective. And that, more than anything, was what set him apart. Over the next few days, Leo and the other participants spent their time in small working groups, brainstorming solutions to the world's most pressing challenges. Leo, alongside several other young prodigies, began working on a project that combined artificial intelligence with genetic research to develop personalized treatments for rare diseases. The ideas that were being shared were innovative, complex, and above all, hopeful. On the final day of the summit, Dr. Harding gathered the group for one last session. "Before we leave," she said, "I want each of you to think about the future. What's one thing that you can do, right now, to make the world a better place? It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be something that takes us a step forward." The group fell into thoughtful silence, each person reflecting on the question. After a moment, Leo spoke up, his voice steady and clear. "I think the first step is to make sure that everyone has access to the tools they need to think, to learn, and to create. It doesn't matter how smart you are. What matters is that you have the ability to ask the right questions and to keep learning. That's how we'll change the world." As Sarah looked at Leo, she realized that he had already started to change the world, one conversation at a time. His ideas, his creativity, and his vision for the future were far beyond anything she could have imagined when they first started this journey. And the best part was, this was just the beginning. Leo's perspective on problem-solving is about changing the way we approach challenges. How do you think this shift in thinking could impact the way we tackle global issues like climate change or poverty? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The final day of the summit arrived with a sense of quiet anticipation. The past few days had been a whirlwind of conversations, debates, and breakthroughs. Ideas that had once seemed out of reach were now being pieced together, and the group had begun to form new partnerships, both professional and intellectual. Sarah couldn't help but marvel at how quickly Leo had adapted, how easily he had found his place among some of the world's brightest minds. But as much as the summit had been a success, Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. The conversations and projects sparked here would need to be nurtured and developed, and Leo's journey, while exciting, was far from over. She had no idea where this path would take them, but one thing was certain: Leo's impact was already being felt. Dr. Harding had arranged a special session for the last day, a chance for all participants to present their most innovative ideas in front of a panel of venture capitalists, philanthropists, and educators. It was an opportunity for the brightest minds at the summit to have their work recognized and potentially funded. For Leo, it was the moment to showcase his groundbreaking ideas in front of a new audience, one that could help turn his vision into reality. As the day began, Sarah found herself feeling a little nervous. Leo had spent hours preparing for his presentation, and she could see how much it meant to him. This wasn't just about sharing ideas. It was about taking the next step, about moving from the realm of theoretical possibilities to actual, tangible change. The venue for the presentations was a large conference room with high ceilings, sleek glass walls, and rows of seats filled with eager investors and influential figures in the tech and education sectors. Sarah sat in the audience, her heart pounding as she waited for Leo's turn to come. The panel of experts, led by Dr. Harding, welcomed the participants with encouraging smiles, each of them eager to hear what the summit's brightest minds had been working on. Sarah watched as the first few speakers gave their presentations, innovative, impressive ideas that showcased the cutting-edge research and technologies that had been discussed over the past few days. But when it was Leo's turn, there was a palpable shift in the room. Leo stood up, his small frame silhouetted against the bright lights of the stage. He walked confidently to the podium, his heart racing but his mind clear. He had never been more sure of what he wanted to say. "Hello, everyone," Leo began, his voice steady but full of excitement. "My name is Leo, and I've spent the last few days here thinking about something that's been on my mind for a long time. How we can use artificial intelligence not just to solve problems, but to change the way we think about problems in the first place." The audience listened intently, intrigued by the young boy's poise and the weight of his words. Leo continued, his passion for the topic evident in every sentence. What if we could teach people not just how to solve problems, but how to approach them differently? Leo asked, what if we could use AI as a tool for creativity, not just analysis? Imagine a world where AI helps people think outside the box, where it encourages curiosity and exploration instead of just providing answers. What if AI could help us learn how to ask the right questions, to think critically and creatively in a way that transforms the way we approach every challenge? Sarah held her breath as Leo spoke, watching as the audience hung on every word. She knew this was big. This was a vision that could change everything. Leo wasn't just presenting an idea. He was offering a new way of thinking about the future. And from the looks on the faces in the audience, it was clear that they understood the magnitude of what he was proposing. Leo went on to explain how his idea could be applied across various fields, from education to healthcare to environmental sustainability. He talked about using AI to foster collaboration, to bring together diverse perspectives, and to create solutions that were not just efficient, but innovative and humane. As we develop AI, Leo concluded, we need to remember that it's not just about solving problems. It's about shaping the way we think, the way we approach the world around us. AI has the potential to be more than just a tool. It can be a partner, a guide, a catalyst for change, but only if we allow it to be. A moment of silence followed his speech, and then, slowly, the room erupted in applause. Sarah's heart soared as she clapped, her eyes glistening with pride. She had always known that Leo was special, but this was something beyond her wildest dreams. She looked around the room at the panelists, who were exchanging impressed glances. Leo had done it. He had captured their attention with his vision, his clarity, and his ability to articulate something that was both innovative and profound. Dr. Harding stood up from her seat, smiling broadly as she addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's safe to say that we've just witnessed something extraordinary. Leo has given us a vision for the future, one that challenges the way we think about technology, problem-solving, and the very nature of innovation. What he's proposed isn't just an idea. It's a new way of seeing the world. And that is the kind of thinking we need. As the applause continued, Sarah felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had seen Leo grow over the past few days, not just in his intellect, but in his confidence and sense of purpose. He wasn't just a boy with a high IQ. He was a young innovator, a creative mind with the potential to shape the future. After the presentation, Leo was approached by several investors and philanthropists who were eager to learn more about his ideas. They asked him questions about how his vision could be applied, what steps would be needed to turn it into reality, and how they could support his work. For the first time, Leo wasn't just an outsider looking in. He was part of a conversation that could change the world. And as the discussions continued into the evening, Sarah couldn't help but feel that Leo's journey had only just begun. They were no longer in a world where people simply marveled at Leo's abilities. They were in a world where his ideas mattered, where his voice could shape the future. That evening, as Leo and Sarah returned to their cabin, Leo was practically glowing with excitement. "Mom, this is amazing. I never thought people would actually want to listen to my ideas like that. I know, I can make a difference. We can make a difference." Sarah smiled at her son, feeling a mixture of pride and awe. "Leo, you've already made a difference. You've opened people's minds to a new way of thinking, and this is only the beginning." As they looked out at the snow-covered mountains in the distance, Sarah realized that the future was wide open for Leo. And together, they were ready to take the next step, whatever that might be. Leo's vision of AI as a tool to help us rethink problems is a fresh approach. How do you think this could change industries like education, healthcare, or even the environment? The snow continued to fall gently over the summit, casting an ethereal glow over the valley below. The events of the past few days had left Sarah feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. As she looked at Leo, who was now more energized than ever, she couldn't help but think about how much had changed in such a short amount of time. The conversation after Leo's presentation had been nothing short of transformative. Investors, scientists, educators, and even entrepreneurs had expressed genuine interest in Leo's ideas. What had started as an intellectual discussion about AI and creative problem-solving had quickly evolved into something much bigger. Leo had given them a glimpse of the future, one that was full of potential, hope, and innovation. But while Leo's ideas had sparked a wave of interest, Sarah knew the hard work was just beginning. It was one thing to present an idea. It was another to turn that idea into something tangible, something that could truly make a difference in the world. Leo wasn't just a visionary, he was a doer. And now, it was time to roll up their sleeves and start working on making his dreams a reality. As the days at the summit came to a close, Sarah and Leo received an unexpected invitation. Dr. Harding had asked them to join a special meeting with some of the top philanthropists and venture capitalists who had attended the event. The meeting, scheduled for the following week, would give Leo the chance to present a detailed plan for his AI-based approach to creative problem-solving and innovation. "I know this is a lot," Sarah said as they sat in their cabin, going over the details of the meeting. "But I believe in you, Leo. You've already proven that your ideas are more than just concepts, they're solutions. And now, we need to take the next step." Leo looked at his mother, his eyes full of determination. "I'm ready, Mom. I think it's time. We can use technology to do something more than just solve problems. We can use it to create new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing the world. People aren't going to expect it from me because I'm young, but that's why it's going to work. They won't see it coming." Sarah smiled at his conviction. "That's the spirit. And just remember, we don't have to have all the answers right now. We just need to show them that the possibilities are endless." The night before the meeting, Sarah and Leo stayed up late, reviewing Leo's ideas and discussing how they could present his vision in the most compelling way possible. They knew that Leo's age would raise some eyebrows, but that wouldn't stop them. Leo had already proven that age didn't define his abilities. His mind, his passion, and his ideas were what mattered. The next day, they arrived at the meeting with a sense of quiet anticipation. The room was filled with influential figures from various industries, all eager to hear what Leo had to say. As Sarah watched Leo prepare to speak, she felt a familiar rush of pride. This was it, the moment that could change everything. Leo stood before the group, a mix of childlike enthusiasm and youthful confidence emanating from him. He was no longer just the curious little boy with an exceptional IQ. He was a young innovator with a vision for the future. He spoke about his idea to use AI as a tool for creative problem-solving, but this time, he had a concrete plan to back it up. "The way we solve problems today is limited by the way we think," Leo began. "We look for solutions based on what we already know, but that's not always enough. What if we could use AI to help us think in new ways? What if AI could help us come up with ideas that we never would have thought of on our own? That's the vision I have. AI isn't just a tool for analysis, it's a partner in creativity. And with the right framework, we can use it to solve some of the world's most pressing issues." The room fell silent as Leo spoke, his words landing with a clarity that took everyone by surprise. He didn't just present a theoretical idea. He had a plan, a vision that was rooted in real-world applications. Leo proposed using AI to identify patterns in data to help people think beyond conventional solutions and to offer creative alternatives to the problems they faced. He emphasized how important it was to create an ecosystem where AI could enhance human creativity rather than replace it. As Leo finished his presentation, the room erupted in applause, with some of the attendees standing to give him a standing ovation. Sarah's heart swelled with pride as she watched her son take the stage and deliver a message that resonated deeply with the audience. This was no longer just a child prodigy. It was a young visionary who had the potential to change the way the world thought about innovation. Dr. Harding, who had been sitting at the front of the room, stood and addressed the group. "What Leo has presented here is nothing short of revolutionary. This isn't just about applying AI in the traditional sense. It's about changing the way we approach innovation itself." Leo's vision is a reminder that sometimes the best solutions come from thinking differently, from asking the right questions, and from embracing creativity in all its forms. As the applause died down, one of the investors raised his hand. "This is exactly the kind of thinking we need," he said. "I'd like to know more about how we can help bring this vision to life. What kind of support do you need, Leo?" Leo, who had been listening intently, responded with the same clarity and confidence he had shown throughout the meeting. "We need support in building the right AI models, as well as access to the data that can help us train them. We need to create a platform that encourages collaboration between different industries so we can tackle problems from multiple angles. And most importantly, we need people who believe in the power of creativity and who are willing to take risks on new ideas. The investor smiled. You've got my attention, Leo. This is the kind of innovation that could change the world. Over the course of the next few hours, Leo and Sarah discussed the next steps with the investors and philanthropists, solidifying the partnerships that would help bring his vision to life. It was clear that the road ahead would be challenging, but with the right support, they could make Leo's ideas a reality. As they left the meeting, Sarah felt a sense of awe wash over her. They had taken the first major step toward turning Leo's vision into something tangible. She knew that the journey wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that Leo was ready. He had proven time and time again that his mind was capable of things most adults couldn't even imagine. And now, with the support of those who believed in him, the sky was the limit. That evening, as they sat together, Sarah looked at Leo and said, "You did it, Leo. You've opened the door to something incredible. And this is just the beginning." Leo smiled, his eyes alight with excitement. "I know, Mom. There's so much more to do. But I think we're on the right path." The future was no longer a distant dream. It was a bright, unfolding reality. And together, they were ready to embrace it. Leo's approach to using AI for creative problem-solving is not only innovative but also disruptive. What do you think is the key to getting people to embrace this new way of thinking? As Sarah and Leo left the meeting, a quiet thrill lingered in the air. The weight of the conversations they had just participated in was not lost on either of them. The journey that had started as a curious young boy with an extraordinary mind had quickly transformed into something much larger, something that could impact industries, communities, and even the world itself. The next few weeks passed in a blur of phone calls, emails, and strategy meetings. The support from investors, philanthropists, and experts who had been so captivated by Leo's vision at the summit quickly turned into action. Plans were drawn up to form a dedicated team. Scientists, engineers, educators, and creative thinkers, all aligned in their belief that Leo's approach to AI could redefine the future of innovation. Leo, however, was not simply riding a wave of success. Every night, after the meetings and phone calls were done, he would retreat to his desk in their cabin, deep in thought. He spent hours reading, experimenting, and refining his ideas. Sarah could see that, despite the attention and excitement, Leo remained as focused as ever. For him, the real work was just beginning. One afternoon, as the sun began to set behind the mountains, Leo turned to Sarah with a look of determination. "I've been thinking about something, Mom," he said, his voice serious. "What's on your mind?" she asked, sensing that Leo had reached another pivotal realization. "What if the AI we build doesn't just help solve problems," Leo mused, "but helps people rethink how we approach the world? Not just in terms of technology, but in every aspect of life. What if we could use AI to help people tap into their own creativity, not just work alongside it?" Sarah raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "How do you mean?" Leo paused for a moment, as if he were piecing together a puzzle in his mind. What if the AI could not only find solutions but also challenge us to rethink the questions we're asking in the first place? The most groundbreaking innovations often start with the right question, not the right answer. The idea was revolutionary, even for someone as visionary as Leo. Sarah had always known he saw the world differently, but this concept, AI helping people to ask the right questions, could change everything. It wasn't just about the application of technology. It was about the philosophy of how we interacted with the world around us. "I think that's brilliant," Sarah said, her eyes wide with excitement. "If we can get people to think differently about the problems they face, that's a game changer. We need a platform that encourages people to think outside the box, to push boundaries. AI could be like a mentor, guiding people to deeper insights." Leo nodded eagerly. "Exactly. It's about creating a space where AI isn't just a tool, it's a guide. It helps people expand their thinking, helps them unlock new ways of looking at their challenges." The concept was beginning to take shape, and Leo felt a surge of energy. This was the next step. The goal was not just to solve problems, but to empower people to think differently and approach solutions in innovative ways. If they could create a system where AI helped users see problems from new angles, they could cultivate a new generation of thinkers who approached the world with curiosity, not just answers. In the weeks that followed, the team began to take Leo's new idea and build on it. They worked together to develop a prototype, an AI-powered platform that would allow individuals to present their problems, challenges, or goals, and have the system propose new, unconventional ways of tackling them. The goal wasn't just to give answers, but to inspire a shift in perspective. As Sarah watched Leo and his team dive into this new phase of the project, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. Leo's ability to see the potential in things others couldn't even imagine was one of his greatest gifts. But more than that, his willingness to explore, to ask deeper questions, was what truly set him apart. Despite the overwhelming success of his initial ideas, Leo had not stopped thinking. He had never been content to rest on his laurels. Every step of the way, he continued to push boundaries, refusing to settle for the conventional. Then came the moment that would define the next phase of their journey. A major technology conference, one of the largest in the world, had extended an invitation for Leo to present his ideas. This was the kind of platform that could propel his vision into the global spotlight. It was an opportunity that could either solidify Leo's place as a leading innovator or overwhelm him in ways they couldn't yet predict. "Are you ready?" Sarah asked one evening as they prepared for the conference. Leo, sitting at his desk surrounded by papers and notes, looked up at his mother. For a brief moment, there was uncertainty in his eyes. But then it vanished, replaced by a calm, confident resolve. "I think I'm ready," Leo said, standing up and walking over to her. "This isn't just about me, Mom. It's about what we can create together. This is bigger than just one person. It's about showing the world that creativity and technology can go hand in hand. That's what I want to do." His words were simple, but they held the weight of everything they had been working toward. Leo wasn't just ready for the stage. He was ready to take on the world with his ideas. The day of the conference arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. The venue was massive, filled with thousands of innovators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. The air buzzed with anticipation as the crowd waited for the keynote presentations to begin. Sarah and Leo sat together in the audience, waiting for Leo's turn to take the stage. Leo had prepared for this moment for weeks, practicing his speech, refining his ideas, and ensuring that his message was clear. But as Sarah watched him, she saw that his nerves were almost non-existent. Leo was calm, focused, and ready to share his vision with the world. When his name was called, the audience erupted into applause. Leo walked confidently to the stage, his steps steady and purposeful. As he stood before the massive crowd, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. She knew that this was a defining moment in his life, a moment that could shape the course of his future. "Good morning, everyone," Leo began, his voice clear and strong. "I'm Leo, and I'm here to talk to you about something that might seem impossible. How we can use AI not just to solve problems, but to reimagine the very way we approach them." The room fell silent as Leo's words hit home. He spoke passionately about his vision for AI as a partner in creativity, not just a tool for solving predefined problems. He explained how AI could help individuals rethink their challenges, ask deeper questions, and ultimately come up with solutions that were more innovative and human-centered. As Leo continued, Sarah watched the audience closely. They weren't just listening, they were engaged. Leo's ideas resonated with them in a way she hadn't anticipated. This wasn't just another tech presentation. This was something profound. Leo was changing the conversation, and they were all eager to be part of it. When Leo finished his speech, the room erupted into applause once again. But this time, it was more than just a polite response. It was an acknowledgement of the groundbreaking ideas he had just shared. As Leo left the stage, Sarah met him with a proud smile. "You did it, Leo. You've made them see what you see. This is just the beginning." Leo smiled back, his face lighting up with the joy of knowing that his ideas had reached the world. "I know, Mom. And now, it's time to get to work." The future was unfolding before them, and Leo was more determined than ever to make it his own. This was just the start of something far bigger than they could have imagined. Leo's vision for AI isn't just about solving problems. It's about changing the way we think. Do you believe that AI can help us rethink challenges in ways we haven't considered before? The weeks following the technology conference were a whirlwind of excitement, strategy, and constant innovation. Leo's speech had reverberated through the tech world, earning him both admiration and curiosity from some of the brightest minds in the industry. Invitations to conferences, collaboration offers from tech giants, and opportunities to work with top-tier scientists flooded in. But it wasn't just the recognition that mattered to Leo. It was the chance to prove that his vision for AI was more than just theory. He wanted to create something that could make a real, tangible impact. While the attention was flattering, it also came with immense pressure. The stakes were higher than ever. People believed in Leo's vision, but now they wanted to see results. They wanted proof that his ideas could be turned into practical solutions that could drive change in the world. The expectations were growing, and Leo felt the weight of them. But he was determined. This wasn't just about proving his genius. It was about proving that a different way of thinking could lead to a better future for everyone. One evening, as Sarah watched Leo pore over design documents and prototypes in the office, she couldn't help but notice a shift in him. The excitement that had been so evident in the past was now tempered with a deep focus and a certain quiet intensity. The pressure was starting to get to him. She could tell he was feeling the burden of being the youngest person in the room in nearly every discussion, the pressure to live up to his own potential. "Leo," she said gently, walking over to him, "you've already done something incredible. You've shown the world what you're capable of. But remember, it's okay to take a breath. You don't have to carry all of this by yourself." Leo looked up, his expression tired but resolute. "I know, Mom, but the world needs these ideas. I can't let it slip by. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, and I can't waste it." Sarah took a seat beside him. "I know, sweetheart, but you're not alone in this. We've got a team now. A whole group of people who believe in this vision as much as you do. You don't have to shoulder the weight of the world." Leo nodded, but there was a faraway look in his eyes. "It's not just the team, Mom. It's the world. People think that because I'm young, I don't know what I'm doing. I have to prove them wrong." Sarah's heart ached. She knew that Leo felt this pressure more than anyone could understand. The world often underestimated young people, especially when they were as exceptional as Leo. He had to fight not only to prove the validity of his ideas, but also to convince others that age was not a barrier to innovation. "I believe in you," she said softly, "and I believe in what you're doing. But you don't have to prove yourself to anyone but yourself. Just remember to stay true to the vision that brought you here in the first place." Leo took a deep breath and gave a small, appreciative smile. "Thanks, Mom. I'll try." Over the next few days, Leo worked tirelessly with his team to build a prototype of the AI platform that would allow people to tap into their own creativity. They called it the Catalyst. The platform was designed to take any problem, whether personal, business-related, or societal, and help the user approach it from multiple angles. Instead of providing simple solutions, the Catalyst would offer a variety of perspectives, guiding the user through a series of questions, insights, and ideas that would spark new ways of thinking. The Catalyst was an ambitious project. It wasn't just about answering questions. It was about asking the right ones. Leo believed that the best innovations came when people were challenged to think differently, when they were pushed to question the assumptions they had always held. The Catalyst aimed to be a tool that would help people break free from conventional thinking, encouraging them to explore ideas they might never have considered. As the prototype took shape, Sarah watched Leo's energy shift. He was no longer bogged down by the weight of the world. Instead, he was focused, driven by the belief that what they were building could truly change how people interacted with technology. The pressure that had once overwhelmed him now seemed to fuel him, and Sarah saw the old spark in his eyes return. But as they neared the launch of the Catalyst, they encountered their first major challenge. One of the investors who had initially shown strong interest began to express doubts. He raised concerns about the marketability of the platform, questioning whether people would truly embrace an AI system that didn't simply solve problems, but instead challenged users to think for themselves. "The world isn't ready for this," the investor said during a call. "People want quick fixes, not philosophical exercises. We need something that can provide answers, not force people to ask more questions." Leo listened intently, but his expression didn't waver. He had anticipated this kind of resistance. He knew that change was never easy, especially when it challenged the status quo. "I understand your concerns," Leo said calmly. "But the catalyst isn't just about providing answers. It's about giving people the tools to find their own solutions. It's about empowering them to think differently. This isn't a product for people who want a quick fix. It's for people who want to create lasting change. The world may not be ready for it yet, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try." Sarah could see the conviction in Leo's voice. He wasn't just defending the product. He was defending the philosophy behind it. She knew that Leo's strength wasn't just in his intellect. It was in his unwavering belief that the world could be better, that people could do better, if only they were given the right tools. The investor remained skeptical, but he ultimately agreed to continue supporting the project, albeit with more cautious funding. As the days passed, Leo and his team worked to refine the prototype, keeping in mind the challenges they would face when introducing a revolutionary concept to the world. On the day of the official launch, the excitement in the air was palpable. Sarah stood by Leo's side, her heart full of pride. The catalyst had officially gone live, and the world was about to see what Leo had created. But Sarah also knew that this was just the first step. They had built something groundbreaking, but now they had to see if the world was ready to embrace it. Leo, standing in front of a crowd of journalists, investors, and tech experts, took a deep breath and smiled. This was the moment that would define not just his future, but the future of creativity, technology, and innovation. "The catalyst is more than just a platform," Leo began, his voice steady and confident. "It's a call to action, a challenge for each of us to think beyond the obvious, to break the mold, and to find new ways of solving problems. Together, we can change the way we see the world. We just need to be willing to ask the right questions." As the crowd listened intently, Sarah felt a rush of pride. Leo wasn't just delivering a product, he was delivering a message. And that message was one of transformation. The catalyst was no longer just a tool. It was the start of a movement. And with Leo leading the charge, there was no telling just how far it could go. Leo believes that in order to innovate, we must ask the right questions instead of always searching for the right answers. Do you think this approach could truly change the way we solve problems? The launch of the catalyst marked a pivotal moment in Leo's journey, but the true test was just beginning. The tech world, for all its innovation and progress, was deeply ingrained in conventional thinking. While Leo's vision for AI as a tool for creative exploration had garnered initial attention, it was far from universally embraced. The skepticism that had emerged from the investor was just the beginning of a much larger wave of doubts that would come crashing in from every direction. It wasn't long before the first critical reviews of the catalyst started rolling in. The product, while groundbreaking, was met with mixed reactions. Some praised its innovative approach to problem-solving, applauding Leo's commitment to shifting how AI interacted with humans. Others, however, found it difficult to understand the purpose of the platform. Why would anyone want an AI that didn't offer direct answers? Wasn't the point of technology to make life easier, not more complicated? For weeks, Leo and his team poured over feedback, adjusting the platform's features in response to concerns. But each iteration only seemed to stir more questions than answers. The media, once captivated by Leo's potential, now turned their gaze more critically. Would the catalyst succeed in the long term, or was it a novel idea doomed to be lost in a sea of more conventional innovations? Sarah could see the weight of the doubt creeping into Leo's demeanor. The endless hours of meetings, the revisions, the pressure to succeed. It was taking a toll on him. The excitement and momentum from the launch had started to wane, and Leo was starting to question his own beliefs. Did people really understand his vision? Were they ready for this new way of thinking? Or was he just too far ahead of his time? One night, as Sarah watched Leo scroll through yet another round of critical feedback, she decided to intervene. She sat down beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Leo, you've built something incredible," Sarah said softly. "But sometimes, when we create something that challenges the norm, people don't know how to react right away. They need time to see the value in it." Leo looked up at her, his eyes weary. "I know, Mom, but I keep thinking, what if I've missed something? What if I'm wrong? What if the world isn't ready for this yet?" Sarah's heart ached for him. She knew how deeply Leo cared about his work. His passion, his vision, they were all-consuming. But she also knew that progress rarely followed a straight path. The greatest innovations in history had been met with resistance, skepticism, and outright rejection before they were eventually accepted. "Leo," Sarah said, her voice filled with warmth and reassurance, "sometimes the hardest part is trusting that what you've created is worth it, even when it doesn't make sense to everyone else. Remember, people laughed at ideas like electricity and computers when they were first introduced. What you're doing is no different. You're changing the way people think about AI. It's going to take time for them to catch up." Leo sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I just don't want to let anyone down. I've come so far, and I know what we're doing is important. But what if I'm too early? What if I've misjudged everything?" Sarah smiled, placing a hand on his. "You're not too early, Leo. You're just ahead of your time. And that's a good thing. It means you're shaping the future, not following it." Leo took a deep breath, trying to steady the emotions swirling inside him. Sarah's words brought him some comfort, but the uncertainty still lingered. Despite everything they had accomplished, it felt like the world wasn't fully embracing the vision he had worked so hard to build. The next morning, Leo woke up early, as he often did. He grabbed his coffee and sat by the window, looking out at the world around him. The sunrise painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, casting a soft glow over the landscape. It was a quiet moment, and for the first time in weeks, Leo allowed himself to take a step back. He wasn't thinking about the next iteration of the catalyst or the pressure from investors. He was simply reflecting on the journey he had taken, from the moment he had first realized his potential to this very point. His thoughts were interrupted when his phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from an unexpected source, Elon Musk. Leo had met Elon briefly at the tech summit, but he had never imagined that Musk would reach out directly. The message was short and to the point. "I've been following your progress with the catalyst. It's an interesting concept. Let's talk." Leo stared at the message, his heart racing. The possibility of collaborating with Elon Musk, the person who had revolutionized space travel, electric vehicles, and so much more, was beyond anything he had imagined. "Without wasting any time," Leo replied, arranging a call for the afternoon. As the minutes ticked by, he tried to steady his nerves. This could be the moment that changed everything. When the call finally came through, Leo's hands were slightly shaking as he answered. "Hello, Leo." Elon's voice greeted him, calm and steady. "I've been looking at your work, and I'm impressed. It's not often that I come across ideas that truly challenge the status quo, but I think you're onto something here." Leo's mind raced as he tried to absorb the gravity of the conversation. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. I really believe that AI can do more than just solve problems. I believe it can help people see the world in new ways, encourage them to think creatively, but I'm not sure if the world is ready for it." Elon's voice was thoughtful. "You're right. The world isn't always ready for change, especially when it challenges the way things have always been done. But that's the beauty of it, Leo. It's people like you who push the boundaries and make the impossible possible. You just need the right platform, the right resources, and the right timing." Leo felt a rush of excitement mixed with nervous energy. "So, what do you suggest?" "I think we should work together," Elon said, his voice filled with conviction. "I believe in what you're doing, and I think we can scale it in ways that you haven't even imagined yet. Let's take this further, Leo. I can help you get the resources you need to truly bring the catalyst to the world." Leo was speechless for a moment. He had imagined this kind of opportunity, but hearing it spoken aloud by someone like Elon Musk made it feel real in a way he hadn't anticipated. I don't know what to say," Leo stammered. "This is incredible. You don't need to say anything yet. Let's make it happen. The future of AI isn't just about creating tools. It's about creating a new way of thinking. And I think we can do that together." As the call ended, Leo leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed by the turn of events. The doubts that had consumed him just hours earlier seemed to fade into the background. He had made it, not just with his vision, but with his belief in the power of creativity, collaboration, and change. With Elon's support, Leo was no longer just a young prodigy with big ideas. He was now part of a movement that could change the world. Leo's journey has been filled with doubts and skepticism, But his conversation with Elon Musk proved that believing in your vision, even when others don't, can lead to groundbreaking opportunities. How do you push past doubt when pursuing your own goals? The offer from Elon Musk was a game changer. It was more than just a business opportunity. It was a validation of everything Leo had worked toward. After their call, Leo felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The doubts that had clouded his mind were still there, but they now seemed more manageable. With Elon's support, Leo could see a clear path forward, one that would not only expand the reach of the catalyst but also solidify his place in the future of technological innovation. But this wasn't just about Leo. This was about the team that had stood by him, the group of passionate, brilliant individuals who had helped him turn his vision into reality. For weeks, Leo had been shouldering the pressure of the catalyst's launch largely on his own, but now, with Elon's involvement, it was time to share the good news with the team. They needed to know that the work they'd poured so much into was about to go to the next level. That evening, Leo called a meeting with Sarah, Ethan, and the core team members. He could sense the anticipation in the air. The team had been working tirelessly to refine the platform, but there was an underlying tension. Everyone knew how crucial this moment was, and the uncertainty about the future was palpable. As they gathered around the conference table, Leo stood up, a smile playing on his lips. "I have some news," Leo began, his voice steady but filled with excitement. "We've been given an incredible opportunity. Elon Musk and I spoke today, and he's offered to help us take the catalyst to the next level." The room fell silent as everyone processed the news. Sarah was the first to speak, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Elon Musk?" she asked, almost disbelieving. "The Elon Musk?" Leo chuckled, nodding. "Yes, the one and only. He believes in what we're doing, and he wants to help us scale it. He sees the potential of the catalyst, and he's willing to partner with us to make it happen." Ethan, who had been quiet up until that point, leaned forward, his brow furrowed with curiosity. "What does that mean for us, exactly? What kind of support is he offering?" Leo took a deep breath, letting the excitement of the moment settle in before answering. "He's offering resources, funding, and access to his network. But it's not just about the money, it's about the vision. He wants to help us bring the catalyst to the masses, refine the technology, and take it beyond anything we've imagined so far. This is the chance to change how people think, not just about AI, but about creativity and problem-solving itself." The room was filled with a mix of astonishment and excitement. It was a turning point, a moment that marked the beginning of something much bigger than any of them had anticipated. But as the initial thrill of the news settled, a more pressing question emerged. "What's the next step?" Ethan asked, his voice steady, but his eyes sharp with the intensity of someone always thinking 2 steps ahead. Leo nodded, his mind already working through the logistics. "The next step is to bring Elon's vision into our work. We'll be expanding the team, bringing in more experts, and refining the catalyst even further. It's going to take a lot of effort, but I believe we can do it. We've already proven we're capable of something great. Now, we just need to take it further." Sarah watched Leo as he spoke, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. He was no longer the unsure, wide-eyed boy who had come to her with big dreams. He had grown into someone who could take on the world, someone who was capable of making the impossible possible. But even as she admired his transformation, she knew that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. With Elon's involvement came not just opportunity, but expectation. The pressure to succeed would be more intense than ever. Over the following weeks, the team worked tirelessly to integrate Elon's support into their plans. They began collaborating with Musk's engineers and AI experts, gaining valuable insights into how to refine the catalyst and make it more adaptable for a wider range of industries. The platform was evolving, becoming more sophisticated with each passing day. The technology was being fine-tuned, while the team was learning to navigate the complexities of scaling an idea from a small startup to something that could impact millions of people around the world. But as the project gained momentum, Leo found himself struggling to keep up with the pace. The demands were constant, and the expectations were growing exponentially. Meetings with Elon, business partners, and potential investors became a blur. There was always something to improve, something to address, and it felt like the pressure was mounting with each new step. One evening, After a particularly grueling day of back-to-back meetings, Leo sat in his office alone, staring at the multiple screens displaying the various metrics and projections for the catalyst. His mind was racing, trying to process the sheer scale of what was happening. He had come so far, but the path ahead seemed impossibly long. Sarah, ever the support system, knocked softly on his door and entered. She could see the strain in his face. The weight of responsibility was starting to show. "Leo," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "you've done something incredible, but you need to take care of yourself too. You can't keep going like this without burning out." Leo sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but it's hard, Mom. Every day feels like it's make or break. There's so much at stake." Sarah walked over to him, sitting beside him on the couch. "I know it feels like everything depends on you, but you're not alone in this. You've got a team, you've got Elon's backing, and most importantly, you've got your vision. Take a step back when you need to. Let others help carry the load." Leo looked at her, a sense of gratitude filling his heart. He had been so focused on the future that he had forgotten to pause and appreciate how far he had come. "I'm just afraid," he admitted. "Afraid that if I don't keep pushing, it'll all fall apart." Sarah smiled softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, pushing yourself too hard is the thing that makes you lose sight of what you're really working for. Take a moment to breathe. The world isn't going anywhere, and neither is the catalyst." Leo smiled, feeling the weight in his chest ease slightly. Maybe it wasn't all on him after all. The next day, Leo made a decision. He would take a step back, not because he wasn't committed to the cause, but because he realized that true leadership meant knowing when to let others step up and contribute. The future of the catalyst wasn't just in his hands, it was in the hands of the entire team. And together, they would make it happen. Leo learned the importance of stepping back and letting others contribute to the vision. When facing overwhelming pressure, how do you find balance between pushing forward and knowing when to lean on others? With Elon Musk's support, the catalyst was gaining traction, but as its influence grew, so did the pressure. Leo was learning, often the hard way, that success wasn't just about brilliant ideas. It was about managing them, scaling them, and weathering the storms that inevitably came with rapid growth. The tech world was no stranger to turbulence, but for Leo, this was a new level of chaos. Every day brought new challenges, new expectations, and a relentless stream of decisions that could alter the course of everything. The catalyst had now moved beyond the confines of a startup. It was a movement, a shift in how people perceived AI, no longer just as a tool for efficiency, but as a partner in creativity, an enabler of new ideas. But as the platform gained more users, more partners, and more attention, the complexities of scaling became impossible to ignore. Leo had barely slept in weeks, torn between managing the endless stream of emails, investor meetings, and refining the catalyst technology. The stress had begun to take a visible toll on him. His team noticed the change too. Sarah, who had always been his grounding force, could see it in the way Leo's eyes had become hollow with fatigue, his once persistent energy now dulled by exhaustion. One day, after a long stretch of late-night work, Leo's phone buzzed with a message that sent a wave of dread through his body. It was from Elon Musk. "We need to talk. I've been reviewing the platform's user data. There's a major issue we need to address. Let's meet tomorrow." Leo's stomach sank. The last thing he wanted was to deal with another problem, but he knew better than to ignore it. The conversation with Elon would be critical. He quickly called Sarah, his voice tight with stress. "Mom, we've got a big problem. Elon wants to meet about the catalyst tomorrow. He's reviewing the data, and something's wrong. I'm not sure what it is yet, but it doesn't sound good." Sarah could hear the unease in Leo's voice. "Leo, you've been pushing yourself too hard. Maybe it's time to take a step back and get some perspective. The team can handle things. You don't have to carry it all alone." "I know, Mom," Leo replied, his voice shaky. "But this platform, everything we've worked for, it's too important. If there's a flaw, it could destroy everything we've built." The weight of it all felt suffocating. Leo could feel the pressure mounting, the fear creeping in that everything could collapse in an instant. The stakes had never been higher. Elon Musk, the man who had changed the world with his own groundbreaking ventures, was questioning the catalyst. The next day, Leo entered the meeting with Elon, his mind racing. As the call began, Elon's usual calm demeanor was replaced with a sharper tone. "Leo," Elon started, "we've been monitoring the catalyst usage data, and I think we need to address a critical flaw. It's not in the technology itself, but in how people are using it. It's not delivering on the promise we envisioned. There's a disconnect between the concept of creative AI and how users are applying it." Leo felt his heart drop. He had put so much of himself into this project. Was this it? Was the catalyst failing? "Can you explain that more?" Leo asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "There's a disconnect," Elon repeated. "We anticipated that people would use the catalyst for more complex, creative tasks. But instead, we're seeing users applying it in more simplistic ways, expecting it to solve problems for them directly instead of challenging them to think for themselves. The platform isn't engaging users the way we thought it would." Leo processed the information slowly. It was a tough pill to swallow. The catalyst was supposed to be a tool that pushed the boundaries of creativity, encouraging users to think differently. But if they were just using it to provide straightforward answers or solve simple tasks, was it really fulfilling its purpose? He leaned back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. "So, what do we do about it?" Elon's tone softened. "We need to rethink the user experience. We need to shift the way we present the catalyst to people. Right now, it's like a powerful engine without a clear direction. If we want to create true impact, we need to encourage users to engage more deeply with the platform, to see it not as a shortcut but as a partner in their creative journey." Leo's mind raced, but he felt a spark of understanding. It wasn't just about the technology, it was about how people interacted with it. The catalyst had the potential to transform the way people approach creativity, but only if they truly understood what it could offer them. "I see what you mean," Leo replied, his voice steady now, the wheels in his mind turning. "We need to refocus the way we market it, make sure people understand the value of working alongside the AI, not just using it as a tool to do their work for them." Elon nodded. "Exactly. And I think we need to provide more guidance, more educational content, so that users can truly unlock the power of the catalyst." The conversation with Elon was a wake-up call for Leo. It wasn't enough to just have a great product. To make a true impact, they needed to rethink the entire user experience, from how it was marketed to how people interacted with it on a day-to-day basis. The catalyst wasn't just about solving problems. It was about inspiring creativity, encouraging users to push their limits, and think in ways they hadn't before. That evening, Leo sat with Sarah, reflecting on the meeting. The weight of the challenge ahead was immense, but for the first time in a while, he felt a sense of clarity. The problem wasn't with the catalyst itself, it was with how people were using it. If they could reframe the way users approached the platform, everything could change. Sarah noticed the shift in his demeanor. "You're thinking clearly now. You've got this, Leo. We'll rework the experience, put more emphasis on teaching users how to use the catalyst in a way that pushes their creativity." Leo nodded slowly. "It's not going to be easy, but I think it's the breakthrough we need. We've come so far already. Now we just need to fine-tune everything." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Leo and his team began revamping the Catalyst interface, implementing changes that would encourage users to think differently about how they engage with the platform. They added tutorials, creative challenges, and prompts designed to push users beyond their comfort zones. The focus was on collaboration with AI, not just using it for simple tasks. It wasn't just about fixing a flaw, it was about enhancing the experience to reflect the true potential of the catalyst. And Leo, for the first time in a long while, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The storm that had threatened to derail everything had become the catalyst for something even better. Leo faced a major setback with the catalyst's user experience, but instead of giving up, he redefined the platform's mission. How do you handle moments when your vision doesn't align with reality, and what steps do you take to get back on track? The days following the meeting with Elon were a blur of activity, but for Leo, they marked a shift. What had started as a potential setback had evolved into an opportunity for growth. The team, now more united than ever, dove headfirst into reimagining the Catalyst user experience. The concept was clear. This wasn't just about creating an AI that did the work for you. It was about creating a partnership between human creativity and machine intelligence, one that inspired users to push the boundaries of what they thought possible. Leo's role had changed, too. No longer was he just the brilliant inventor behind the catalyst. He was becoming the visionary leader, the one who needed to guide his team through this pivotal moment. As much as he had relied on his intellect and creativity in the past, Leo realized that leadership now required something deeper, a willingness to step back, let others take the lead, and create space for the team to flourish. Sarah, Ethan, and the rest of the team were all fully on board. They spent long hours brainstorming, testing, and refining ideas. Sarah took the lead on developing educational content that would help users understand how to work with AI, while Ethan focused on creating challenges and prompts that encouraged users to think more creatively. They began implementing these new features, which would allow users to unlock more sophisticated uses of the Catalyst by solving complex problems or engaging in creative exercises. But Leo was still the one holding it all together. His ideas were the spark that ignited everything, and even when the pressure of the situation weighed heavily on him, he knew that the success of the Catalyst rested not just on the technology, but on his ability to bring people together around a shared vision. One evening, after a particularly long day, Leo sat with Sarah in their usual spot, at the kitchen table, with a pot of coffee between them. The weight of the world had been on his shoulders lately, but now, as they discussed the new direction they were taking, he felt a surge of excitement that he hadn't felt in a while. "I think we've got it," Leo said, his voice filled with a new energy. The changes we're making, educating the users, encouraging real collaboration with the Catalyst, it's all coming together. Sarah smiled, a look of pride on her face. "I can see the difference in you. You're seeing this as a bigger picture now. It's not just about the product, it's about how it changes lives." Leo leaned back in his chair, a sense of calm washing over him. He had realized something profound during the past few weeks. Success wasn't just about creating the perfect product. It was about creating something that had a lasting impact on people's lives. The Catalyst wasn't just a tool. It was a revolution in how people could approach problem-solving and creativity. And now, with Elon's guidance and the team's dedication, they were finally going to make it a reality. It was time for the next step. The first test of the new features came sooner than expected. Elon had arranged for a demo day, an event where the Catalyst would be presented to a select group of investors, industry leaders, and creative professionals. It was a huge opportunity, and Leo felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. This was the moment where everything they had worked for could either succeed or fail. The team spent days preparing for the demo, fine-tuning every aspect of the platform to ensure it showcased the Catalyst's potential to its fullest. Leo was more involved than ever, his focus unwavering as he made sure every detail was perfect. But as the day of the demo approached, the pressure mounted. He could feel the weight of Elon's expectations on him. On the morning of the demo, Leo stood before the audience, his heart racing as he prepared to present the Catalyst in its new form. The room was packed with influential people from the tech world, people who had the power to make or break the Catalyst's future. As he stepped up to the stage, his nerves seemed to vanish. He looked around the room and saw the eager faces of those who were about to see what he had spent so many sleepless nights building. "Good morning," Leo began, his voice steady and clear. "I'm here to show you something that, quite frankly, I believe will change the way we think about creativity and problem-solving. The Catalyst is not just an AI. It's a partner, a collaborator that can unlock the full potential of human creativity." He went on to explain how the platform had evolved from a simple tool into an interactive, user-driven experience. He demonstrated how users could now engage with the AI to tackle complex challenges, pushing their own limits and expanding their creative horizons. The platform was no longer about simply providing answers. It was about fostering a deeper connection between technology and human ingenuity. As Leo showcased the new features, he felt the energy in the room shift. People were leaning forward, engaged, intrigued by the potential of the Catalyst. He saw heads nodding, whispered conversations, and faces lighting up with excitement. It was clear that the room understood what he was trying to accomplish. When the demo concluded, the room erupted into applause. Leo stood there, his heart pounding, as the crowd's approval washed over him. Elon, who had been seated in the front row, stood and clapped along with everyone else, a satisfied smile on his face. Leo stepped off the stage, his breath catching in his throat. He had done it. The catalyst had passed the test. Later that evening, after the demo, Elon took Leo aside for a private conversation. "That was impressive," Elon said, his voice filled with admiration. "You've really redefined this platform. You're onto something big, Leo." Leo smiled, but he could still feel the adrenaline rushing through him. "It's not just me, Elon. The team really pulled together. This is just the beginning." Elon nodded. "I agree. We've only scratched the surface of what the catalyst can do. There's a long road ahead, but I believe in you and this platform." As they spoke, Leo realized that the breakthrough they had achieved wasn't just about the technology. It was about their ability to adapt, learn, and grow. They had faced challenges, had setbacks, and had doubts, but they had emerged stronger, more focused, and more determined than ever. This was just the beginning. The Catalyst demo was a huge success, but Leo's journey to get there wasn't easy. How do you stay motivated during the tough times when the path to success feels uncertain or overwhelming? The success of the demo had sent waves through the tech world, and Leo could hardly believe how quickly things were moving. Investors were eager to get involved, and the buzz surrounding the catalyst reached new heights. It was as though the entire world had been waiting for the next big leap in AI, and they had just witnessed the beginning of it. Leo knew, however, that this was just the first step. The real challenge was ahead, scaling the catalyst into a global platform. The first few weeks after the demo felt like a blur. Leo and his team were flooded with offers and requests. They were inundated with opportunities to partner with major companies, universities, and even creative institutions. The attention was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Leo had never anticipated that their product would catch on this quickly. The world was waiting for the catalyst, and now, the pressure was on to deliver. He spent long hours in meetings with potential investors and partners, trying to balance the overwhelming demand with the integrity of his vision. Sarah, Ethan, and the rest of the team were working tirelessly behind the scenes, fine-tuning the platform's capabilities and ensuring that it could handle the increase in traffic. The Catalyst had been designed to be scalable, but now Leo would have to see if it could live up to its promise. On top of the growing workload, Leo was feeling the strain of the expectations surrounding him. The world was watching, and the success of the Catalyst could either cement his place in tech history or lead to an inevitable crash. The stakes had never been higher. In one meeting, an investor had bluntly asked, "How are you planning to handle the next phase? You've shown us a great demo, but scaling is where companies either fail or succeed." Leo had no answer, not a clear one anyway. He didn't know what the future would look like, but he did know that the key was managing both the product and the people. This wasn't just about technology anymore. It was about leadership. In the midst of the growing chaos, Leo found a quiet moment at home with Sarah. It was rare, but every once in a while, they would steal some time for themselves. They sat together on the couch, talking through their next steps. "I'm not sure I'm ready for all of this, Mom," Leo admitted, staring out the window. "We've gone from a small project to something that could change the world, and I don't know if we're equipped for that kind of responsibility." Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've been carrying this weight for a long time, Leo, but you don't have to do it all alone. The Catalyst is more than just your idea now. It's a team effort. Don't forget that." Leo took a deep breath. He knew she was right, but the fear of failure still loomed large. In the back of his mind, the thought of everything collapsing was always there. But as Sarah reminded him, the strength of the Catalyst was in the people around him, his team, the partners, and, most importantly, the users who believed in its potential. The next phase was about more than just product development. It was about leading with purpose and vision. Leo knew he needed to build a foundation that would allow the platform to grow without losing sight of its mission. He needed to maintain the delicate balance between innovation and stability. The team's first task was to address the infrastructure. As the user base grew, so did the demand on the Catalyst servers. Leo spent countless hours with the engineering team, making sure the platform could handle the surge in traffic without compromising performance. They optimized everything from the data flow to the user experience, ensuring that as more people joined, the quality of their interaction with the Catalyst remained high. But scaling wasn't just about technology, It was about maintaining the integrity of the product. As they grew, Leo had to make difficult decisions. How could they keep the platform open and accessible to everyone, while still maintaining a premium experience for those who needed it? How could they ensure that the platform didn't lose its core value of collaboration and creativity, even as they onboard more users? The Catalyst had been designed to be adaptable, but adapting to the massive influx of users presented new challenges every day. It was like building the plane while flying it. Every new feature, every tweak to the platform, had to be tested for scalability. One mistake could mean a crash, and Leo couldn't afford that. Yet, amid all the technical work and meetings, Leo knew that the most important part of this process was keeping the culture intact. He didn't want the Catalyst to become just another corporate product. He wanted it to remain a tool that inspired, challenged, and empowered people. That meant nurturing a community, not just a user base. As the platform scaled, Leo began to implement a new initiative, the Catalyst Creators. This would be a group of selected users who had shown exceptional creativity and who could help lead the way for new users. They would serve as ambassadors for the platform, providing feedback, sharing ideas, and helping others navigate the AI's creative potential. The idea was a huge success. By empowering users to take ownership of their creative journey, Leo was building a sense of community within the Catalyst. It wasn't just about what the Catalyst could do for them. It was about what they could accomplish together. The team worked tirelessly, making improvements and ensuring that the Catalyst stayed true to its core mission. At the same time, Leo was learning to trust others more, to delegate, and to empower those around him. He couldn't do everything, and that was okay. The team was as capable as he was, if not more so. One evening, Leo stood in front of the mirror in his office, looking at his reflection. He had aged in the months since the Catalyst launch. There were more lines on his face, a hint of gray in his hair, but his eyes still held the same fire. The fear of failure had not gone away, but it had become a motivator, driving him to work harder, to never settle for mediocrity. In that moment, Leo realized that the Catalyst was more than just a project. It was a reflection of everything he had worked for, a symbol of his passion, his vision, and his determination to push the boundaries of what was possible. But it was also a reminder that success was not just about technology. It was about leadership, collaboration, and staying true to the mission. He wasn't done yet. The journey was far from over. Scaling a platform like the Catalyst comes with its challenges. When you face the overwhelming task of growth, how do you stay focused on what truly matters and avoid getting lost in the details? As the weeks passed, Leo's vision for the Catalyst continued to unfold. The platform had gained momentum, attracting users from all walks of life. It was becoming a worldwide phenomenon, with creators and problem solvers embracing its power. The Catalyst had surpassed even Leo's expectations in many ways, but with success came new, unexpected pressures. Leo's initial joy was starting to feel more like a distant memory. The weight of managing the growing company had begun to take its toll. What was once a small, tightly knit team was now expanding rapidly. New hires, new projects, new partnerships. Everything was moving faster than Leo could keep up with. At night, the doubts crept in. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if they could sustain this growth. Was he making the right decisions? Were they moving too fast? Was the Catalyst in danger of becoming something it was never meant to be? The moment of crisis came when the platform experienced its first major technical failure. It started innocuously enough. One of the major partners, a prestigious creative institution, had launched a challenge using the Catalyst to help students build innovative designs. It was supposed to be a showcase of the Catalyst's capabilities, but within hours, the system began to lag. Users couldn't access the tools they needed. Some couldn't even log in. What started as a minor glitch quickly escalated into a disaster. The Catalyst servers couldn't handle the load, and users were experiencing delays, crashes, and performance issues. By the time Leo and the team were alerted to the problem, it was already too late. Social media was exploding with complaints. Users were upset, and the partners were furious. The backlash was immediate and harsh. Leo's phone was ringing nonstop. Sarah, Ethan, and the other team members were all working overtime to try to resolve the issue, but the damage was done. The platform's reputation had taken a hit. "Leo," Elon said when he called, his voice calm but firm. "This is a critical moment. If you don't fix this quickly, the trust we've built with our users could be shattered. You need to make this your #1 priority." Leo felt the weight of Elon's words. He'd always known that the pressure would come, but he never expected it to hit this hard. There was no denying it. The catalyst was at a crossroads. The team pulled together in an effort to resolve the crisis, working around the clock. They identified the issue, a flaw in the scaling system, which had been overlooked in the early stages of development. As the platform grew, the infrastructure hadn't been able to handle the massive increase in user activity. Leo's worst fear had come true. The catalyst wasn't built to handle the volume it was now experiencing. Ethan, the engineering lead, was the first to admit that they were behind schedule in upgrading the infrastructure to handle this kind of growth. The pressure to launch faster, to meet demands, had caused them to rush things. "This is my fault," Ethan said, his voice filled with regret. "I pushed for faster deployment, thinking we could patch things as we went along. I didn't anticipate this scale." Leo paused, feeling a rush of conflicting emotions. There was disappointment, certainly, but also relief. Relief that they had identified the issue and could fix it. Relief that they weren't dealing with something irreparable. Still, the damage had been done, and the clock was ticking. "We'll fix this," Leo said, his voice steady, despite the storm of emotions inside him. "Let's focus on the solution. We'll get this back online and rebuild the trust." As the team worked through the night to resolve the technical issues, Leo sat alone in his office. He felt completely drained. The crisis wasn't just about the tech failure. It was about the people who had believed in him and in the catalyst. Had he failed them? Was his dream turning into something that could crumble under the weight of his own ambition? He thought back to the early days when it was just him, Sarah, and a handful of dedicated individuals. Back then, it was all about the vision, the excitement, and the belief that they could change the world. But now, the stakes were much higher. The world was watching, and he felt every bit of that pressure. By morning, the technical issues had been resolved. The platform was back online, and users were slowly returning to the site. The damage to the reputation, however, couldn't be undone overnight. Leo knew that, while they had fixed the immediate crisis, they had lost some of their trust with users. The day after the crisis was resolved, Leo called an emergency meeting with his team. They needed a strategy to rebuild and restore faith. But more than that, they needed a plan to ensure this didn't happen again. "The catalyst has to be bulletproof," Leo said, his voice determined. "We can't afford another failure like this. We need to prioritize scalability and user experience over everything else." Sarah, who had been working tirelessly to manage user communication during the crisis, spoke up. "We need to be transparent with our users. Acknowledge the mistake. Explain what happened, and assure them that we've learned from it. Trust is everything, and we have to rebuild it." Ethan nodded, agreeing with Sarah. "We'll also need to overhaul our infrastructure. No shortcuts this time." Leo looked at his team. He had always believed in their abilities, and in this moment, he realized something important. They weren't just here to build a product. They were here to build something that could stand the test of time. The catalyst had the potential to change everything, but only if they did it right. As Leo left the meeting and walked back to his office, he reflected on what had just happened. The crisis had shaken him to his core, but it had also taught him valuable lessons. There would always be obstacles, and things wouldn't always go according to plan. But how they handled those obstacles, how they learned from their mistakes, was what would define the catalyst in the long run. As much as he hated to admit it, the failure had been a wake-up call. It was time to slow down, to focus on the long-term health of the platform rather than the short-term rush. Crisis management isn't easy, especially when you're dealing with the expectations of others. How do you cope when things don't go as planned? What helps you stay focused on the solution? In the aftermath of the crisis, Leo felt a mixture of exhaustion and resolve. The night of the technical failure, his mind had raced with doubts, but now, with the platform back online, he understood what was at stake. The catalyst wasn't just a product, it was a vision. And visions weren't easily destroyed. Leo and his team had survived the storm. Now it was time to rebuild. The first step in the rebuilding process was to regain the trust of the users. Leo and Sarah knew this wasn't going to be easy, but they were prepared for the challenge. It was clear that open communication was key. They needed to be transparent with their community, explain what went wrong, and show them that the catalyst was stronger than ever. Leo sat down with his marketing team to plan a public statement. "We're going to be honest with our users," he said. "We'll own the mistake and explain the steps we're taking to fix it. We need to show them that we're committed to doing better." Sarah added, "People value transparency. It's not just about fixing the problem. It's about making sure they know we're listening." The statement was carefully crafted, acknowledging the issue without making excuses. They explained the cause of the failure, what had been done to address it, and their commitment to building a more robust and reliable platform moving forward. The message was simple but powerful. We are sorry. We are committed to improving, and we are here to stay. Once the statement was published, Leo braced himself for the reactions. Would the users forgive them, or was the damage irreparable? The comments flooded in. Some were supportive, others were harsh. But even in the negative feedback, Leo could sense a longing for the catalyst to succeed. People believed in the platform, and they wanted to see it succeed, even if it had faltered for a moment. For the next few weeks, Leo and the team focused on the next steps. They doubled down on their infrastructure, bringing in new engineers to help upgrade their systems. Ethan worked tirelessly with the team, overseeing the implementation of better scaling solutions and ensuring that the platform could handle the ever-growing number of users. But Leo knew it wasn't just about the tech, it was about the culture. The Catalyst's success had always been rooted in the creativity and collaboration it inspired. Leo didn't want that to be lost in the push for growth. He wanted to ensure that the core values of the Catalyst were preserved, even as they expanded. Leo set up new channels for feedback, forums, surveys, and even a direct line to the support team. He wanted to hear from the users, to understand their needs and frustrations. In doing so, he reaffirmed the sense of community that had made the Catalyst so special in the first place. One of the key decisions Leo made during this time was to initiate a Catalyst Reset campaign. They would not only fix the technical issues, but also update the platform's interface and add new features based on user feedback. The goal wasn't just to recover, but to improve, to turn this setback into an opportunity to make the Catalyst even better than before. As the weeks went by, the platform slowly regained its footing. The user base grew, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Users appreciated the transparency, the improvements to the platform, and the new features that had been added. They were beginning to see that the Catalyst was more than just a tool. It was a community, a place for them to create, innovate, and collaborate. One day, as Leo was working late in his office, he received a message from Elon. The CEO of SpaceX had always been a mentor to him, but now, with everything that had transpired, Leo found himself unsure of how Elon would react. The message was brief but direct. "Leo, I've been watching. I know things were rough for a bit, but I'm impressed by how you've handled the crisis. You've built something real here. I want to meet. Let's talk about the next steps." Leo felt a rush of relief mixed with excitement. Elon Musk's endorsement meant more than just a vote of confidence. It was a validation of everything Leo had worked for. Elon understood the pressure of creating something that could change the world. He knew the risks, and he recognized the resilience it took to recover from a setback like the one the Catalyst had experienced. A few days later, Leo met Elon in person. They sat across from each other at a table in a quiet conference room, and for a moment, Leo felt a nervous flutter in his stomach. This was a pivotal moment. Elon wasted no time getting to the point. "I've seen the growth potential in the Catalyst. But you know as well as I do that scaling this thing isn't going to be easy. You've got something powerful here, Leo, but it needs to be more than just scalable tech. It needs to have the right leadership and vision to support it. I'm willing to back you, but I need to know you've got what it takes to lead through the tough times." Leo nodded, his heart racing. "I've learned a lot in the past few months. The mistakes we made were hard, but they taught us more than any success could. I'm ready to lead this team through whatever comes next." Elon's gaze softened slightly. "Good. Because what comes next is going to be a whole new level. We need to be thinking bigger, global scale. We're talking about reaching millions of users across the globe. It's a different kind of challenge. Leo felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it, the next phase. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. With Elon's support, they could push the catalyst to new heights. "We're ready," Leo said, his voice filled with conviction. "We've got the tech, we've got the team, and we've got the vision. Let's make it happen." As the meeting ended and Leo walked out of the conference room, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The storm had passed, and the catalyst was stronger for it. They were no longer just a startup, they were a force to be reckoned with. Leo knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he was no longer afraid. He had learned that setbacks were part of the journey, and as long as they stayed focused on their mission, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. Rebuilding after a setback requires a lot of perseverance. What steps do you take to ensure you come out stronger on the other side? How do you keep the momentum going when things seem uncertain? The catalyst had weathered the storm. Leo and his team had rebuilt not just the platform, but also their reputation. As the weeks turned into months, they made significant strides, slowly but surely returning to the growth trajectory they had once envisioned. The initial failure, while painful, had become a critical learning experience that shaped the company's direction. Leo sat in his office, looking out over the city skyline, reflecting on everything that had brought him to this point. The path had not been easy. There had been moments of doubt, moments of fear, and moments when the whole idea seemed like it might collapse under the weight of ambition. But in the end, they had come out stronger, with a clearer vision of what the catalyst could become. The phone buzzed, snapping Leo out of his thoughts. It was a message from Sarah. "The launch event is ready. It's all set." Leo smiled, standing up from his desk. The team had put in countless hours of work to ensure that this moment would be a success. It was time to make the world see what the catalyst had become. The stage was set for a massive global launch. The launch event was a massive affair. The team had spared no expense, and the venue was a sleek, modern building, packed with journalists, influencers, and industry leaders. The lights were dimmed as the crowd settled into their seats, the air buzzing with anticipation. On stage, a massive screen displayed the logo of the catalyst, and the countdown began. Leo stood backstage, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. This was it, the moment that would define the future of the catalyst. It was a make-or-break moment, one that would determine whether they could truly scale the platform to global success. As the countdown hit 0, Leo stepped onto the stage to a round of applause. He waved to the audience, his heart pounding in his chest. This was the culmination of everything they had worked for, and it was time to show the world what the catalyst was all about. "Thank you all for being here today," Leo began, his voice steady and confident. "When we started this journey, it was just a few of us, with a vision to create a platform that could change the way the world thinks about collaboration, creativity, and innovation. We've had our share of challenges, and yes, there were times when we didn't know if we could make it. But today, we stand here together, stronger than ever, with a global community that believes in the mission." He paused, allowing the audience to absorb the gravity of his words. The catalyst is not just a platform, it's a movement that empowers creators, problem solvers, and innovators to come together and make the impossible possible. And today, I'm proud to announce that we are officially launching the Catalyst globally, opening the doors to millions of users who will be the architects of a new future. The room erupted into applause. For the next hour, Leo walked the audience through the new features and updates, demonstrating how the Catalyst could help people from all walks of life tackle problems in creative ways. He shared stories of how users had already made an impact through the platform, building everything from revolutionary technologies to powerful social movements. When Leo finished his presentation, the crowd was on their feet, applauding and cheering. The energy in the room was electric. This wasn't just a product launch, it was the beginning of something much bigger. The Catalyst had become more than a tool. It had become a symbol of possibility. After the event, Leo stood outside the venue, looking out at the city lights. The air was cool, and the excitement from the launch was still palpable. People were streaming out of the building, talking excitedly about what they had just witnessed. Leo felt a sense of pride wash over him. This was the moment he had worked for, the moment that confirmed that the Catalyst was on the right path. He was soon joined by Sarah, Ethan, and the rest of the team. They all stood together, taking in the moment. We did it, Sarah said, smiling. Leo nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd. We really did. Ethan added, I never thought we'd be here after everything we've been through. It feels surreal. We've earned it, Leo said, his voice filled with gratitude. We've built something real, something that can change the world. Just then, Leo's phone buzzed again. It was a message from Elon. Great job today, Leo. You've got something special here. I'm looking forward to what comes next. Leo smiled, reading the message. He knew that this was just the beginning. The catalyst had grown beyond his wildest dreams, but there was so much more to accomplish. All right, team, Leo said, turning to his colleagues. We've made it this far, but this is just the first step. Now, we take this to the next level. Let's keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. As the night drew to a close, Leo felt an overwhelming sense of hope. He had been through the worst of times, but now, everything felt like it was falling into place. The catalyst was ready to reach new heights, and Leo knew that with the support of his team, his mentors, and his community, they could achieve anything. The world was waiting, and the catalyst was ready to show it that anything was possible. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?